It says we're going live. Come on, YouTube. And we're live. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday evening. And everyone on board right now, we just have LiteratureDevil. Thanks for coming, LiteratureDevil, this later evening show, as we usually don't have, but he's being very generous with his time today. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
All right, and we're doing a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, or just the one that we just keep beating into the ground, because everyone loves talking about it. And of course, with the release of the latest movie from Disney, there's all sorts of hoopla about this and that and the other thing. So we thought, okay, well, we'll see. There's going to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe there's some new insight that we've missed over the years on The Last Jedi not being a complete storytelling failure. And we found a pretty good video. This is from a fan on my Facebook page, and out of the blue I said, hey, this is a great option. I then talked to LiteratureDevil. He said, great, let's do it. I went over the video, guys, and it sounded pretty boring, honestly. So I decided to bring in SouthPaw. SouthPaw is currently getting over to the stream. If he's not there already, I don't know. Hopefully he'll jump in soon, and we can have a great, jolly good time. And I don't know if he's popped in yet, but he's hurrying from work, and we could have a swell, fun. I don't think we're going to argue. I think we're just going to have just a laugh fest.
I have a theory about this. Oh, hello.
How's it going?
Hey there, Southpaw. How's it doing, sir?
Oh, doing okay. I just got home from work, and now I'm ready to cover some tisms with you guys.
Oh, I thank you so much. This has been a pleasure so far, and everything's been going smoothly technically. In case, I don't know, I get disconnected, just entertain yourselves. I'll be back within minutes. So, or the stream might die. That could happen too. So, yeah, apparently this was done on the EFAP podcast. Southpaw just told me. And I had no idea because I'm too busy this month. I don't have time to watch EFAP as I used to. And I think we're all busy this December with just so many things going on. So
Yeah.
Glad to have you two together at the same time. I know we had to figure out a time because, again, we're all busy. I know that LiteratureDevil has been doing very well on the comic book crowdfunding front. And congratulations on, what was the new milestone you just passed? I can't remember what it was.
I passed there's this other comic like there's from the enemy camp. the SJW NPC people, they made actually they're all from industry. There's like 40 plus industry people and people they recruited off the mere fact that they are troublemakers. Like they're the people who go around and try to just destroy people. The extremists who just go around to start like they're the kind of people who will call for mass reportings of campaigns and try to get you arrested or whatever, try to get you fired from your job.
This
Those
is the
people,
infamous cancel culture crowd. Yeah.
right? The cancel culture crowd. They made a book. They got together with some industry darlings like Max Pasaccio and Juan Zocief and all that stuff, and they made a anthology called Deadbeats. And they managed to, with all their star power, accumulate about $33,844. And the milestone I hit was just me and my artist with Dr. Alpha hit $33,890. So
Nice.
defeated 40 plus industry darlings.
Well, bravo to you,
Awesome.
sir. That sounds great.
I thought that was a pretty good win.
Okay, so if you guys haven't seen what we do usually on EFAP, or sorry, on this stream is very similar to EFAP. LiteratureDevil and myself, we go not every frame. We watch a little bit. We talk about it. We criticize, and the most popular product or topic of discussion, I wouldn't say product, is criticisms on Star Wars and the interpretations therein. And so far, I have to say, this is perhaps the most, I guess, the highest production value of a Star Wars positive critique of The Last Jedi.
I went over it a few times. I mean, I went over a little bit of the video just to see it, to check it out, and it's the exact same arguments we've been hearing almost, but it is presented in a far more sane manner.
I tried going through it twice. I stopped and I thought I would make notes to prepare myself, and I thought, you know what, I've heard this all before. I know what I'm going to say. It's going to be redundant to the people listening. Let's bring in someone new. Southpaw sounds like a fresh voice, fresh young perspective. Maybe he's got more in crowd voices that we don't have that we can add to the discussion. I don't know. It sounds as if it's all the same regurgitated stuff, but I don't know. Southpaw, you got anything new to say? I don't know if you watched the video at all, but
I mean, I watched EFAP's coverage of it, and it's basically Michael Dorsey said so in the chat, and I'm going to just quote him here. It's basically every The Last Jedi defense that you've ever heard, already basically repackaged.
That's the kind of sense I got from it. Yeah.
And I haven't actually spoken very much on The Last Jedi publicly. I haven't made a video on it yet. I've done several digs at it in different videos that I've done, which I haven't made that many yet. But I'm glad to be here so I can finally actually get my thoughts out more on this movie, because I think the most I ever spoke about it was on EFAP 47, and I really fucking hate this movie. I saw it on opening night at like a midnight screening, and I came out so angry that I actually argued with a guy in the parking lot of the movie theater for like 2 hours. So it was like all the way into like to 5 a.m. we were arguing about this movie, and every time that he kept on going into the whole like subjective realm, I just kept on saying, dude, the Leia scene, Leia flying through space, that's not cool. And he said, yeah, you're right, it's terrible. So it's just no, there's like a million things that are wrong with The Last Jedi. Upon seeing The Rise of Skywalker, I've actually come to appreciate its pacing a little bit. It's not a perfectly paced movie, but it's far better paced than The Rise of Skywalker.
wow.
Have you guys seen The Rise of Skywalker yet?
No.
Not yet.
Oh.
I do have a theory that I went over earlier today that Last Jedi is their flagship. That's the one they want. They want more movies like The Last Jedi. Because if you look at all the criticisms of the Atlantic and all the normal shill media that love The Last Jedi but who hate The Rise of Skywalker, it is they're all lambasting The Rise of Skywalker because this Rise of Skywalker dared to treat fans like people. They're all saying, the Rise of Skywalker pandered too much to fans. You got Ryan Johnson saying that pandering to fans is a bad idea. It's weak, and all these shill media people, they've come out against the Rise of Skywalker because it actually pays homage to fans, and they hate that. They want more The Last Jedi stuff where they insult the fans and exile and alienate the old fans so they can have their new fans come in, because new fans don't really ask too many questions.
Yeah, the issue with The Rise of Skywalker is not the fan service. I would say that it kind of like forces the fan service in a lot of places where it doesn't fit. But I don't think that fan service is inherently a bad thing. Especially, I think it's far more preferable to what The Last Jedi did. Now, I think that a big factor that played into the media, really putting The Last Jedi on a pedestal was its very left-leaning themes. And a lot of movies have left-leaning themes, and that's not inherently a bad thing. It's not inherently a bad thing for a movie to want to take on a topic such as toxic masculinity, right? Like Fight Club is a movie that focuses on the same subject. It just handles it in a much more subtle and nuanced way. It doesn't beat this message down your throat. It's a lot better executed in that film. Whereas with The Last Jedi, they wanted to praise this movie for having a very pro-feminism message about how Poe was in the wrong for questioning his female commander. But the problem with that is that that theme is not actually supported by what we see in the movie. Poe did nothing wrong, guys. That's all I have to say. Holdo,
he was right.
Holdo
was the one who was succeeding. Yeah.
Holdo was acting completely incompetently. Poe was the one that was blowing up the dreadnought was the right call. I mean, it's weird that they would start the attack on the dreadnought and then decide to pull out and allow that thing to continue existing to fire upon them and blow up their fleet. So you've got two high-ranking female military leaders that are acting incompetently, but the movie is trying to tell us that no, they're in the right, even though we know for a fact that if Poe and the rest of the fighters retreated, then the dreadnought would just blow them up, because doesn't the dreadnought's cannons go through shields and shit?
I don't know exactly how powerful the cannons are, but the impression of the suspense of the scene was that they were about to fire. And that would have
Hmm.
been, and Leia was like the zoom in of Leia. It's like, oh, here it comes. And then boom. So, yeah,
Hmm.
it probably would have destroyed the ship.
So yeah, so we know that. I mean, Poe says that it's a fleet killer. Okay, so um, given what we know about that, it's like it's reasonable to suspect. Okay, retreating is a bad call here. Destroying the dreadnought is the right call. They are alive because they destroyed the dreadnought. Now you've got this female commander that is not even telling. Like she's not only she is not telling Poe, she is not telling a lot of different members of the resistance about her even having a plan, which is why there's people that join Poe during the mutiny. So you have like it's very reasonable to. I mean, it's pretty much the only reasonable interpretation is that Holdo is being incompetent and Leia was incompetent, and it's also not very professional to slap people even for being insubordinate. Not good to slap your subordinate officers even if they're being insubordinate. And then you've got Poe, the guy that's doing the right thing and acting as a reasonable person would, being belittled and chastised and being told, oh, he needs to stop mansplaining and he needs to check his privilege and shit throughout this entire movie. And so people eat that shit up. So it's like, had they at least framed the conflict in a way where, yeah, Poe actually did fuck up in the beginning and then did learn a valuable lesson, and they didn't have Holdo and Leia acting stupidly, I would have actually been okay with that because there isn't enough that we know about Poe from The Force Awakens to contradict that. So I don't have a problem with them trying to take this route. The problem is that what we see in the movie, it doesn't support this theme about Poe checking his privilege and overcoming toxic masculinity. So, but of course, the media doesn't want to focus on that. They just appreciate that, wow, there's a Star Wars movie that's attacking toxic masculinity, and so they're siding with it blindly. And so I think like that's a major motivation for them, whether it's like whether they acknowledge it or it's just kind of like an underlying maybe subconscious motivation that they have. But I think that's a major reason why people support this movie, as well as like you've also got they take Luke Skywalker, a well-renowned, very high-profile white male hero, and then they turn him into a loser, which it's a pattern that we've been seeing lately. You have Supergirl, the CW show, turning Superman into a pussy compared to Supergirl. You've got the recent Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover on the CW with Batwoman, turning Kevin Conroy's Bruce Wayne into a murderer who is inferior to Batwoman because Batwoman kills him. And then you have what else?
James Bond. They're going to do the same thing with James Bond.
Possibly. I'm going to wait to confirm, but it's reasonable to assume that that's the direction they're going to take, given the pattern of other, the pattern that we've been seeing with other white male heroes. And the same thing goes with John Connor in Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh, yeah.
They killed him off just to replace him with this Hispanic chick who does a very terrible job at even trying to convince people that she could be a suitable John Connor replacement. And, I'm not trying to make this all about identity politics. I don't like thinking about, oh, you need to write your white male characters this way. But there's something about what they're doing to legacy characters that have been around for a long time who happen to be white and male that, like, I highly doubt that they would do this to a character that isn't a straight white male. So it's The Last Jedi's boldness in doing that, as well as the whole shit that they did with Poe and Holdo. I think that the reasons why people defend this movie and its writing is very political. Now, most people that I talk to that like The Last Jedi, they just simply like it for other reasons. They like, like I have a coworker who I spoke to today, and he just said that he liked the mysticism of the Force that the movie addressed that, The Force Awakens didn't really have, and he appreciated that, because, The Force Awakens and Rogue One, they didn't have the that little theme or anything like that part of the story, and he really dug it. So that was and there's other reasons why people can like the movie. I Hate Everything made a really good video on the Rise of Skywalker recently, where he basically admitted that he just likes Rian Johnson's directing style, and that's perfectly fine. But I also think that if you're trying to defend the movie from a writing standpoint, at this point in time, like, you're either really ignorant about the arguments against how this movie is written, or I think that you just have a political motivation to plant your feet into the ground, bury your head in the sand, and just refuse to listen to people. So that's my take on why this movie is basically a media darling.
Okay, that was a heck of an intro. Thank you so much there, SouthPaw.
Thank you very much, my boy.
All right, we're 15 minutes in. Let's get started, shall we?
Absolutely.
Welcome to Too Late Who Gives a Shit, the show in which I talk about something that's already been thoroughly reviewed, debated, that every possible opinion has been expressed over, and that no one wants to hear anything about ever again. Making this video a really dumb fucking idea.
Let your fan base die. Kill it, if you have to.
But I think it's fair for me to talk about the film when every corner of the internet is still oozing hatred for it. Watch a video of kittens playing, and someone is shitting on The Last Jedi beneath it. The prequels had a notoriously bad reception, but this almost seems worse. Or at least more confusing, because this time critics mostly loved the movie. With the final chapter of the story looming, I wanted to entangle myself in this clusterfuck of a thing by offering a breakdown of why I think the film is good. But first, by watching this video, you certify that you are a mature adult capable of considering opinions contradictory to your own without taking severe offense in organizing harassment campaigns and other retaliatory actions. This video is merely one fan's opinion.
Again, there's nothing wrong with saying your opinion, whether you like it or dislike it. I don't know why he's making a joke about this. It sounds pretty petty, but okay. This is his style of comedy, sure.
I mean, it just seems like with this disclaimer, it's like he's trying desperately to have it so that, if you disagree with it, if you try to point out why he's wrong, then he can just wave it off as, oh, you're just being immature. You're not actually a mature fan because you're taking severe offense to my video.
Yeah, and harassment.
You have to remember remember Star Wars is just a movie about space wizards intended for children, so you can't really take it too seriously anymore.
Yeah, and harassment campaigns are going on Twitter and saying this movie sucks. I don't like this writer person. Blah.
Now let's go. That's exactly what I'm going to do after we get done here. I'm going to go go formulate a harassment campaign.
140 characters or less. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, harassment campaign.
Presented for entertainment purposes. It is intended for individuals with a sense of humor. If you do not have one, then you are encouraged to watch something else.
Okay, so this is all for humor. We're doing this for fun, guys. There's no actual serious conversation to be taking place. It's just for fun.
I'm only joking that I'm retarded.
All my opinions? Yeah, you could laugh at them. It's all a big joke, guys. Okay, thanks. We got it.
If you like my opinions, then it's serious. But if you don't like my opinions, just kidding.
Now, with that out of the way, we can talk about how Star Wars fans are the very worst people. Just the dumbest... Oh, shut up. You stay. Fuck you. All that fans kept saying after the prequels was how much they wanted movies like the originals again. I'm not sure they understood what that meant, because those films were made under completely different circumstances, when Star Wars was silly.
Didn't think it was going to be any good. At least I didn't.
Leia's your sister. I said, oh, come on.
Her hair and weird buns on the side.
I said, this is the goofiest thing I've ever read. You got to read this. I passed it all around because nobody...
I'm sorry. So you can take clips from interviews, or behind the scenes footage from any movie, and make it seem like it's just goofy. You could do this with Mission Impossible Fallout. You could do this with Lord of the Rings. You could do this with fucking To Kill a Mockingbird, even if they had behind the scenes footage of it.
So far, the argument is that the whole difference between the modern day Star Wars movies and the original trilogy movies is that they had fun behind the scenes.
They were silly back in the day.
They were silly. They were silly behind the scenes. They had a lot of fun. Now it's just it's grueling and torturous, and that's why we have different movies now.
Yeah, well, if you compare the director's cut of, let's say, the prequels and I guess Episode 7, they showed George Lucas just like pulling his hair out and like arguing with people.
Yeah, it was tense. It was a tense environment.
They were all like arguing and saying, "Oh, this scene is not interconnected, and you can't take it out because this is going to cause this to fall." And it's like, "Oh my God, we wrote this pile of crap." And in the new series, it's all, oh, we had such fun, and this was such a great idea, and I was watching Ryan, and it's like, wow, you guys just had an amazing, fun time spending hundreds of millions of bucks and making crap. Wow, bravo. No conflict, no great backroom conversations of talking behind people's back or destroying entire scenes or wasting millions of dollars on Canto Bight or whatever. No, just everyone had a great time.
I mean, I think it was also a tense environment on the original one because they had a lot of disagreements on how things were supposed to be cut and all kinds of character disagreements. But apparently, they were also silly and they were hungry. That's the important part. They were also very hungry.
Yeah,
when George Lucas made the prequels, he wasn't really all that hungry anymore.
Yeah, no, he was just goofily writing, and then some editor came by and fixed everything for him like it was nothing. Yep, no problem.
I wonder if maybe it's been a while since I know that EFAP very recently covered this, but I can't remember everything that they say, or everything that the video will say. But I was wondering if maybe he's referring to just the fact that, like, when you first watch Star Wars, there's a lot of stuff in it that's weird and silly looking, like, I was thinking, imagine what audiences must have thought when they saw the first movie back in 77,
right? And
like the Jawas show up on screen. It's like, what the fuck are those guys?
Yeah.
This is strange, but yeah, I don't know. It might be worth actually proceeding to see what exactly he's talking about. But the accompanying footage that he's using here is not making his point all that clear to me.
Cared.
We have large dogs flying spaceships. You describe it and people will say, oh dear.
The Wookiee has no pants.
Lucas originally wanted to do Flash Gordon and couldn't get the rights to it, so he cobbled together ideas from westerns and...
Okay, this is not just to comment on this, but we need a clip of that. Mark Hamill saying, the Wookiee has no pants. That'd be perfect to play for any occasion, I think. And yeah, we know that George Lucas was trying to do Flash Gordon. You know how many different franchises were born out of people wanting to do something, but they couldn't get the rights to it? Like World of Warcraft was going to be a production of Warhammer, and they couldn't get the rights to it, so they just made their own thing. It happens all the time. It's a good thing. I mean, sometimes it's really good that they can't get the rights to it, because then we got Star Wars, and we got a bunch of other stuff too.
Samurai films to make his own space adventure.
What he made me think of is the Japanese sword master.
It was so unoriginal that it doubled back on itself and became original again. No one knew what Star Wars was when it released.
I'm not exactly sure what that quote means. It was so unoriginal, it became original.
What does that even mean? What?
You're inspired by something, and you can't get the rights to it, so you do your own version of it.
So unoriginal that it became original.
There's a reason why. So apparently there was a movie called Willow that was a Lord of the Rings ripoff by George Lucas. So you get Star Wars, right, which it has inspirations from Flash Gordon, and that becomes a major success despite the fact that it's like somewhat derivative. Although I can't remember Flash Gordon having all of the different elements of Star Wars that, like the Death Star, the Force, and lightsabers, and all that cool shit. Like Flash Gordon has its own mythos and lore and everything, and then Star Wars has its own that's still compelling, even if it's somewhat inspired by Flash Gordon. And then you get Willow, which is like an obvious Lord of the Rings ripoff, and that doesn't how exactly do you say it's so unoriginal that it becomes original when there's other instances of like very derivative works that don't have the lasting impact of Star Wars? There was something about Star Wars that was original enough that allowed it to have some staying power. I mean, you get Aragon, which is a ripoff of Star Wars, but with dragons in like a medieval fantasy setting. And at least like the books at least were somewhat successful, but the movie itself not really.
It's a strange statement. I think he was just trying to be facetious or being clever within one sentence.
Yeah, and this is all for humor,
exactly.
as we saw in the disclaimer.
It's all funny. It's all fun and games, guys. Don't take it seriously.
He's just joking.
But all these things, this happens all the time. There's a lot of people, a lot of authors, they take inspiration from various works. If you put Flash Gordon and Star Wars side by side, you can see some similarities, but you're not going to confuse one for the other. They're both very distinct. You can tell Flash Gordon and you can tell Star Wars from one another. They're both, even if you just take Star Wars from the very first couple of movies, even if you take Star Wars from the very first movie, it has its own unique identity. It's very transformative. And same thing with Willow. I mean, you could say that it was heavily inspired from Lord of the Rings, but it has its own identity also. Even though Indiana Jones, he took a lot of inspiration from pulp serials.
Oh yeah,
it's its own. It still has its own identity. We can see these things. We can see it compared side by side with each other, and it has its own identity. It's very original, just because it was taken. Some heavy inspiration was taken from other sources. Does not mean it's unoriginal.
Yeah, you can absolutely become inspired by an already existing work, but then you can still do something. You can spice things up a little bit. You can tweak it a little bit, make some changes, and go take your story in a few different directions. That then makes it original, even if it's very clear what the original inspiration was.
Yeah, I'm going to give this guy a pass on that sentence. It was just a facetious statement, and
probably.
we don't have
It's
to
all
worry
for
about
Okay.
it. Yeah, the real criticism is coming soon. Don't worry.
Audiences had never seen a movie like it. They had to be shown what it was by Lucas and the subsequent filmmakers. But it turned out to be a story they already knew. Lucas heavily based the plot on classic mythology, especially Joseph Campbell's writings on the hero's journey. Star Wars isn't science fiction. It's an adventure that's thousands of years old and universal to every culture.
I attribute most of the success to the psychological underpinnings, which have been around for thousands of years, and the people still react the same way.
Lucas took that mythology and told it on the biggest scale it had ever been told on before, which is the ultimate achievement of Star Wars. A generation was forever changed by these movies. To the people that grew up with Star Wars, it's not just a movie they like, it is their childhood. Star Wars is no longer silly, it's sacred. And this is where the fun begins. Because now, everyone in the theater thinks they know what Star Wars is better than the filmmaker, and who could tell them they're wrong? These directors are just fans like anyone else. Everyone was impacted by the movies differently, and so everyone has their line in the sand.
Is there any proof that Rian Johnson is a fan of Star Wars, other than he just directed a movie of Star Wars? I don't think so. Also, he says who's to tell anyone that you don't or do know what Star Wars is? As he said, what he's doing right now is he's setting up this point where Star Wars and the rules therein are actually set in a mire of ambiguity, so that he can tear it down and say, well, you actually don't know what Star Wars is, and if you did, then it would take away from the mysticism. Well, he's going to bring in a couple of things, but that's what he's setting up right now.
The beautiful thing that Disney did was they just said, oh, you know what? There's all this media out there that we own. We can't make sense of it. Instead of hiring a lore expert or a historian or just a Star Wars fan who really loves the stuff to sort it all out and say, where's the consistency? Where's the inconsistency? They just said, oh, yeah, we'll just scrap it all and do our own thing. It's like
it's all non-canon.
Yeah, it's everything is just some sort of legendary world that we're not too sure about, and we'll sometimes take a little feather and pluck it out of our hat and put it on ours. It's like, okay, yeah, you could do that, or you could actually tell a good story and not worry about consistency and just make your own thing up, do it your own way. And they did effectively. They just did it the wrong way or the poor way.
Their vision for what the characters should be, and any new story is inevitably going to alienate one part of the fanbase or the other.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if you have Luke Skywalker written the way that he is in the original trilogy, and then you skip 30 years, and we have no development in between that gives us context for this scene that we see on screen here, yeah, people are going to have a problem with that. That's a matter of it, again. It's like, okay, I like to make this analogy all the time. I'll make it again. Okay, imagine a sequel trilogy to Lord of the Rings, and it takes place 30 years after the original story that we all know of, right? And Samwise Gamgee, he's a drunkard, an abusive husband, and he molests his own kids. Well, people change in 30 years, right?
I didn't want him to change that way, though.
And hey, if you have a problem with that, then you are you're incorrectly assuming that you know that you understand Lord of the Rings and that you know what it's about.
Well, there's
I'm
nothing,
sorry, I hate this argument.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with changing a character. You just have to explain it. Show us the reason. And the reason we got was so dumb, was so paper thin. It's like, well, what did he do all this time? Why did he not go and help him? He felt shame for 30 years. He felt afraid for 30 years. Yoda didn't do anything to help him for 30 years. Really? You just sat there?
And Yoda, who can now appear as a Force ghost and just interact with the world. And this is the strange thing about Luke Skywalker here, in that where you pointed out that Samwise Gamgee is an abusive husband now. These are heroes. These are the heroes of the original trilogy. These are the heroes of the first adventure we saw in this franchise. We don't really want them to. We want a character like Luke, who is on the journey to becoming a powerful Jedi, to becoming a powerful hero in the years to come. We want to see him succeed somewhat. We want to see a 36-year older Luke being wise, being almost like a Yoda-esque figure. If he's not going to be the main character, he can at least become a mentor. That's what we wanted to see. That's what we expect to see. It can be a little darker, a little more cynical, but to take it to the extents that Rian Johnson did, without any explanation, it's just all of a sudden he's just an emo now. You're going to have to accept it, because that's what happens when people get older. They become cynical and nihilistic. No, we need some sort of explanation, some sort of glimpse into the journey, other than he once saw his nephew. He once said his nephew was going to turn evil, and he tried to murder his nephew in his sleep. And there's not really much of Luke Skywalker there that we wanted to know. It's like, why would he do that? What happened between the last movie and this one?
Hey, Devil, I've got a very similar sort of case here. So you know how a lot of people complain about the decision to have Superman snap Zod's neck in Man of Steel, and you know how then a lot of people complain about the decision to make Batman into basically the Punisher in BVS. Okay, so at least in the case of Batman, I can say, well, he's been Batman for 20 years, and he recently lost Robin off screen, and so he's crazy now. This is what Rian Johnson did to Luke in The Last Jedi is honestly something that I would have thought only Zack Snyder would have done. This is literally a fucking Zack Snyder type interpretation on the character. We have to be grim, dark. We have to make everything gritty and depressing, and we have to take heroes like Superman and turn him to killers.
What I did like about this scene, if there's anything to say about it, it was told from three perspectives to showcase that Luke is actually now lying or withholding the truth to Rey, something a Jedi wouldn't do. Now you could say, well, that's part of his rejection of the Jedi, so that could be true, that he's no longer a Jedi. You're like, okay, when did he start feeling that way? It certainly wasn't because Ben over here, threw him aside. What was the cause for that? So there's all these other layers of Luke that we just didn't get, that could have been told in an interesting way in a movie that Ryan thought he was being clever at, or he wanted to build a scene up, and it just didn't build up to anything. It just like, oh, I remember it this way, and then Kylo says, no, I remember it this way. Then Ryan, and then Luke, no, this is what really happened. It's like, what is going on in this scene? Can you actually give us a real sense of understanding, not like it's some mystery we have to unravel? There's no mystery. Once we find out, I just got scared. I felt remorse, and like, and then
this is like Luke. He's gonna turn to this cynical person like a drop of a hat because he got scared for a second.
Yeah, like if you want elements of mystery, you have to show that properly. You have to set it up, and then have some sense of discovery, some sort of payoff. All that happens is he gets knocked down and cries in the rain. Like,
I'd like to quickly respond to a guy in the chat, Mr. Watcherman, saying that's still not a good reason for Batman to kill people, since in the comics Batman didn't snap and start killing people after Robin died. We're not talking about the comics. We're talking about like a movie franchise, and there's been so many different versions of Batman, and most of them have been complicit in killing people. Michael Keaton's Batman, not a lot of people like to talk about this, but he blows up a dozen dudes in a scene in the original Batman. He sadistically grins as he's gonna kick a guy away with a bomb strapped to his chest that's about to blow up. Christian Bale's Batman killed Ra's al Ghul, technically. So I think that when it comes to like you're interpreting comic book characters a little differently than they usually are, I think that you have a lot more leeway than telling us this is the Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy. Okay, if you are trying to tell me that Christopher Reeve's Superman would kill people, I would say, okay, no, but you can certainly do an adaptation of Superman where, sure, he kills people, I guess. If you're, saying, yeah, this is like a different continuity, this is not the original comic Superman, that's fine. The issue here isn't that, they had a version of Luke Skywalker that contemplated killing his nephew, like an alternative version. It's that this is supposed to be the same Luke Skywalker that we saw in the original trilogy. This isn't some alternate timeline or alternate universe. This is the same one that we've been following since 77, and I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah, we need this. We can have a Luke Skywalker like this. We can have a grim, bitter, cynical Luke Skywalker, but we need a way to where we can get there. We need some explanation, because when we come to Luke Skywalker in these new movies, he's just cynical. He's a cynical emo guy. Now, all of a sudden, we don't really see his progression from valiant hero in the original trilogy to cynical weirdo who kills his own nephew.
Yeah, and if the movie was all about this whole transition, that would have been like half the movie. That would have been fine. We'd be like, oh, we understand it now. Now we can get on with the current setting. Great, let's do that.
We might as well have made Luke Skywalker the main character. Like, could be a good argument to be made for that. Or we need to have like you said, a good segment of the movie showing us organically how Luke Skywalker went from the valiant hero at the end of the Return of the Jedi to the cynical mentor we see with the Last Jedi. I keep forgetting all about that movie.
You would need like a 20-minute like montage, basically.
Yeah,
it would have to be an extensive scene. Like at the very least, we need 20 minutes of a montage.
At least, yeah.
Watchmen once saying, aren't movies adaptations of the comics though? Movies are not one-to-one adaptations of the comics, and they make changes to characters all the time. Look at Spider-Man. Enough said.
A really good method was the Godfather 2 method, where they kind of have lengthy flashbacks of Vito Corleone and what he was, coming over from Italy and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We could have done that with Luke Skywalker. Just have little flashbacks within the movie of major segments of Luke Skywalker's life, and we can see, how he transitioned from the Return of the Jedi to modern day Luke Skywalker. We can just maybe 2, maybe 3 sections over the course of the movie instead of one long segment if they wanted before to do that, because they did in the Godfather Part 2, and it worked pretty well.
Honestly, they should have just cut everything to do with Holdo, Poe, Finn, and Rose, and have the entire movie focus on Rey and Luke and Kylo. I'm not even kidding you. Like if you had 2.5 hours of screen time dedicated to those characters, it could have been done. It could have been executed far better than it actually was. But no, there was like 3 different other plot threads that they had to waste our time with that ultimately amounted to nothing and has no purpose to the rest of the trilogy.
I heard they cut out a bunch of stuff out of this movie, but they still left in Canto Bight for some reason.
Yeah, the most pointless fetch quest that is in the whole trilogy, and Rise of Skywalker is filled with fetch quests, and The Force Awakens is an entire fetch quest movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Especially since the fan image of the originals has gotten so distorted that The Last Jedi ended up being heavily criticized for doing the very things those movies did. In fact, I would take it a step further and say that if The Empire Strikes Back had somehow only been released today to this fan base, they would probably tear it apart.
Visual aberrations were never...
Here it is.
Yeah.
Is the most the most predominant argument to defend The Last Jedi with. You're all just whiny man babies, except it's done in a different package.
Established in the prior canon, you can't just make abilities up. Oh, he's Skype choking him through the TV. Okay. Oh, hello. Yeah. Pressurized space suits. Walk out in it's negative 100 degrees.
I'm pretty sure that they're in some type of atmosphere, considering that there's a worm that's living in that cave, like a giant worm.
Yeah, there's gas on the ground, meaning there's a certain sense of gravity, and air is in the atmosphere. They can't breathe it, but there is an atmosphere of some sort. So you can do a lot of things just by visually looking at stuff. Obviously, they're walking in some sort of 1G environment. You know, those sorts of things. You can make basic observations. You understand what's going on.
Also, this is the original trilogy. Okay, they have a lot more leeway in the original trilogy to make things up because it's the original trilogy. They're establishing the rules in these first movies. Now,
this is only the second movie.
Yeah, when we're moving on to what's the 6, 7, 8, or you're moving on to 7, 8, 9. You have a decades of material between the original trilogy and the modern Disney sequels. You are much more constricted. You have to follow more guidelines because more guidelines have been established. The original trilogy had no guidelines. They were making the guidelines as they made these movies.
Yeah, if there was like a whole scene of like decontamination and repressurization and checking your tanks and all these things, and they just walk out down the off ramp, you're like, what the hell? Like that would really sort of screw around with continuity because there's all these precautions and procedures. And if they don't establish that, then you don't have to worry about all these things. So
that's why, I mean, in Star Wars, the original trilogy in Star Wars, the engines and stuff of the ships, they don't really matter. It's just, the ships are just vehicles to take you one place to the next. If that sort of thing would matter in Star Trek, but it's never been established as a matter of concern in Star Wars.
Right. This is talking about the genre or the degree of hard and soft science fiction, or as I like to call sci-fi versus science fiction. And we know that Star Trek is science fiction. Something like Independence Day is sci-fi. Star Wars is closer to that than let's say Star Trek. Just the scale is different.
Yeah. For example, if you had Star Trek and they established that you have to check the engines, you have to do this, you have to put on environmental suits, and to depart on a planet or whatever. And then next time the same scenario pops up in a later installment of Star Trek, and they don't do that, that breaks continuity. But because they don't do that here in the original trilogy of Star Wars, they don't go into that deep depth of we gotta check all these kind of suits and take all these precautions. Then you don't really need to do that in future installments.
Yeah, like the first movie establishes that apparently sound travels through space in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean, it established it in the original trilogy. You kind of established for the universe,
and it is like a fantasy universe, and so like I give it a lot more leeway than let's say if it were an Ad Astra, which at least abides that particular rule. Like Ad Astra has a ton of fucking problems, but it was trying to go for a more realistic depiction of space travel with like the lack of sound like in space. But with Star Wars quickly establishing that no, sound travels through space in this universe, that's just a rule that's set there. Now, but then you get to The Last Jedi where I'm not going to go too hard on the gravity with the falling bombs because there's arguments that can be made that's like the momentum from when they're falling out of the ship's artificial gravity would continue even in space. That's fine. But the thing is like the fact that someone can apparently get blown out the airlock and survive in those conditions with frost on their skin, and they're able to like regain consciousness in space. Like there's a lot of different. It just makes me wonder, like how different is this version of space exactly? Like, okay, I was fine with the whole there's sound that travels through space, whatever. But the fact that, okay, apparently frost can develop on your skin, and yet it still doesn't kill you when you get sucked out of an airlock. So it's like, okay, so it's cold in space, in Star Wars at least.
And you have raw solar radiation hitting your face, but it's not melting your skin. There's lots of things to think about. And
there's definitely no gravity in space, at least, because she's floating, so there's that.
And she's keeping pace with the ship at this. Even the ship is like full blast, going as fast as possible. There's all sorts of weird things and she's in I don't know, raw space for like a minute or two. It's awkward. It's weird. It doesn't make sense. It's not explained. These are things that need exposition. You need details. You need a flashback, 5 seconds here of her training, anything, something for us to latch on to go, how is this even physically possible? Use the Force.
Yeah.
It's a magic wand on lots of things, so use it. And they didn't.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't bother to do the extra 2 or 3 seconds to go, yeah, she trained, or yeah, she I don't know, invented something. It doesn't matter what, just show us something.
Revenge of the Sith has General Grievous destroy a window that leads to space, and Anakin and Obi-Wan clearly don't want to get sucked out, so they grab hold of something, while Grievous basically flies out there, but then he's got some grappling hook, and he grapples himself back onto the exterior of a ship or something. So at the very least, they establish that space is a vacuum of sorts in Star Wars, and they have enough information in previous movies showing, okay, getting sucked out into space is not exactly something that you want to have happen. It's not honestly, with what we know about space now, thanks to The Last Jedi, one just wonders why Obi-Wan and Anakin didn't just go, oh, it's okay, we can just pull ourselves back to the ship and fly in space. We're not going to die instantly.
An asteroid. Is there a cozy atmosphere in a space rock? You can only survive in space for 10 seconds. I googled it. What is a creature like this even eating? How does this many spaceships flying out to the remote asteroid field?
I am your father.
Red ruined my childhood. What a massive retcon. They ruined it.
How is that a retcon? That's a plot reveal.
Yeah, it's a plot reveal.
Yeah, if they were to say that, if they were then to go into Return of the Jedi, and then Darth Vader would say, by the way, Obi-Wan is actually your father. That would be a retcon.
Yeah,
I forget what the technical term actually is for this, but there actually is a term for this where they didn't actually plan for this to happen. It is kind of planned. They kind of threw it in later, but it still fit within continuity. I forgot the technical term, but that's something writers tend to do. But it's not a retcon.
A plot twist doesn't have to be necessarily set up from the beginning. It just has to make sense. So you could totally wing a plot twist that actually manages to not contradict anything and actually line up with previously established details. So
yeah, take that, all you subverting expectation writers.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is this was a secret that Lucas saved from all the other actors, everyone on staff except for one other person and Mark Hamill. That was it. And if he said the secret gets out, I know who caused it. And that's why he wanted this scene to be so authentic to Mark and to Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan was talking about his father in the past tense. He was this great dude, da-da-da-da. So there has to be a reason for that, and that was it. This was this whole dramatic moment.
Also, this plot twist actually makes the story a lot more interesting, whereas a plot twist saying that Rey is a nobody does not. It just goes, that whole mystery box about who she is and what her backstory is, it's all for nothing.
Comparing those two things are just night and day, man. I don't know how we're
That's how you know they had no planning going into this, because all of a sudden they can just kind of kill Palpatine's son or daughter off screen and just continue on with his granddaughter for some reason. I guess no one would care about who Palpatine's son or daughter was. Bad idea.
Yeah.
Bad.
They ruined Luke's character and Vader's character at the same time. Backstory? Fuck you, Irvin Kershner.
Still with me?
I can feel your anger.
If you're not convinced, here are some examples, beginning with... The Force began as a vague metaphor for religion and kept changing form right up until the cameras began rolling.
It didn't change form. We were getting more exposition on what the Force is and can do. We have no background on it. It's the first film. We don't know yet.
Yeah. Like I said, we're establishing the groundwork for the Force. You can't you have more restrictions for later movies.
Palin Yuki in the chat mentions, this is a great point. He says, the first trilogy, when Lucas wrote the second, he wrote a cheap movie because he thought it would bomb. Here Disney knew that they were doing a trilogy with all the money that they want. So yeah, the first movie, they thought that it was going to bomb. They thought it was going to be a standalone flick, and then it turned out to be a huge success. So then they had to wing it with the next one, and it managed to work. So like, whereas with Disney, they planned. Well, they didn't plan the trilogy, but they knew that they were going to do 3 movies. But they didn't actually like make an outline that would connect all 3 of them together in a cohesive manner.
Yeah, so the argument is that the Force is changing so many times we can't keep up, and this is natural because A New Hope is the intro to, or even I guess even Empire, they introduce some new ones as well. So you can't do that. It's too contradictory to have a mystical power that it's a mystery to everyone. It's invisible, that has been trained for thousands of years by special monks on either good and evil sides of the coin of the Force. Can't be done. You just can't do it, apparently.
Yeah.
If you list every ability seen in A New Hope, they don't exactly make the most sense together.
Yes, they do. Telekinesis, telepathy, and energy, essentially. That's pretty much all it is.
That's what the Force was actually described as in the first movie, kind of a force that surrounds us, an energy field that surrounds us, giving off by all living things, and it surrounds us and it goes through us, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was basically kind of like it's basically what people refer to as God. It's all around you. Okay, it's natural.
The Empire Strikes Back expanded those abilities, with Luke outright using telekinesis, gaining superhuman agility, and seeing through time. By the end of Return of...
I don't know about seeing through time.
Seeing through time?
That's weird.
He has a vision. He has a Force vision.
Is that maybe that's what they're talking about, like precognitions?
Right. Yeah, and it's not
premonitions.
It's not like 100% accurate. It's just sort of a feeling of what might become, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's pretty common in not just fantasy, but sci-fi fantasy.
That's a religious thing. I mean, they're making the Force a religious sort of
there's
power.
The prophetic visions and Shakespeare. There's all sorts of these ideas. So it's nothing new.
Exactly. Which, by the way, is the reason being they're not space wizards. They're space priests.
Oh.
They're more like monks.
They're monks.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wrong class weirdos.
They're like warrior monks, basically.
they dual class. Yeah. Okay.
The Jedi, the Emperor is shooting lightning out of his hands. It's fair to say that this was being made up as they went along. And that doesn't diminish the Force in any way.
Still fits.
It was an incredibly flexible plot device, something to move the story and characters along that could take whatever form the writers needed. This is a good...
I have a question. So, like, let's say that in the sequel trilogy, instead of shooting lightning from their hands, Snoke shoots fire out of his hands. Do you think that still fits?
It could, yeah. If he shot lasers, then I'd put my foot down, but...
Yeah, but like fire, like that's a matter of you'd be using the Force to like rub heat molecules together to create the friction required for a chemical reaction.
Right.
So that would still feel like Force pyrokinesis would be kind of cool to see in Star Wars. I'd be totally okay with that. But yeah, Force lasers, like no, not so much.
Illustration of how the Force was used. It doesn't matter that Luke can jump 20 feet in the air. That ability is never important to the story. But knowing how literally fans take things, I assume there's a 20-page Wikipedia article about Jedi leg ligaments.
Isn't it kind of like a different variation of Force push? Because you're forcing the Force to push something, or you can manipulate the Force to help you jump higher. So it's just like the same power, very same typical staple power of a Jedi, but it's using it to Force push yourself.
Right. So you're pulling or pushing something. You could pull or push yourself. I guess the idea is that they somehow tap into their bodies because this is all this mysticism element of Zen Buddhism and the monks that were training.
Because what's that Zen, right? So some of those monks. There's a lot of those Buddhist monks who are all they do these viral things where they display these feats of strength, these feats of inhuman strength or inhuman abilities. Like I think some of them are like being able to catch bullets or something like that, or being able to. They've shown this, but I'm not really sure if it's real or not. But it's something that you can feasibly, I guess, kind of imagine them doing because they have their chi. They summon chi, and they can just use their chi to do all kinds of crazy things.
There's a lot of cultural overlap, not only with mysticism and Buddhism, but Zoroastrianism, all sorts of other religions that the message of the Jedi, as well as their physical feats of magic, are relatable in some way, or we can understand that, okay, he's doing this magic thing that maybe they did back in the day, and now it's a mystery to the rest of humanity in another part of the galaxy. Ooh, it's that sort of mystical aspect, which people, as a kid, you'd be like, oh my God, I want to grow up and be a Jedi. Like that's your mentality. And what a simple message, because these guys are benevolent monks, and they're a mystery to the galaxy. And this kid, this nobody, is suddenly being able to do all these things suddenly as he goes on his journey to become something else. Classic stuff. Anyone can relate to that. So once you start deviating from that, now they can do meditation, which causes you to break rocks, or now you can lift a mountain, or it's like, whoa, okay. Where did this happen? How? This is not what we were taught. The lore does not establish this as a fact that it can be achieved. It's something that is unheard of.
Yeah, exactly.
People looked at the Force Unleashed game with the whole ripping the Star Destroyer out of the sky.
Right.
And had issues with that, but it seems like they're now making exceptions with, lifting a mountain is totally okay.
Yeah, it's fine now. Totally fine.
As long as it's a woman doing it.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're a clone of Vader who's training you how to do these things. It's another thing as if, you have a vagina now, and
he wasn't a clone of Vader. He was like a Jedi Master's like son that Vader basically trained, and then he became a clone in the second one.
Second one, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't a clone of Vader himself.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that.
He was an apprentice of Vader, though.
Right. So he had this amazingly powerful, dark Force user who could do amazing things.
Yeah, and he was trained too. He was trained from like when he was a child to, I guess he was like maybe early 20s, maybe late teenager sort of age. So he was trained, unlike Rey, who was not trained at all. She was just awesome.
Who can accidentally break a mountain by breathing. Yeah.
By sitting down. Unless Luke is the best mentor who ever lived.
It's like, Rey, I want you to breathe. Okay, she inhales for 30 seconds and cracks the earth. Like, wow.
I'm really good at this.
Hey, Smut Boy, could you check something that I sent in the Discord chat?
Sure, what's up?
Also, there's the whole fact that if they had to establish Luke needing to train to use Force powers, if they had established Luke as not need training, and he's just awesome to begin with, he can lift. And if Luke could lift the mountain from the very first episode, then there probably would be no issue with Rey lifting a mountain from the very first episode or second episode. But they established that Luke needed training, so therefore Rey needed training. She didn't get training, but she could still do all of the awesome stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when you have continuity that doesn't match up with the previously established lore. You have a confusion and a question that is raised in the hearts and minds of the audience. And you don't do that in good stories. Good stories should be consistent, especially when you're talking about fantasy or sci-fi fantasy or even just normal science fiction. You need a level of detail. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be present in the new trilogy. So
that's how you get Mary Sue's.
That is one of the many perfect storm that needs to happen for Mary Sue. It's kind of strange how Mary Sue's even can exist. Like, it's one thing to be a fanfic writer and say, I'm going to write this really amazing dude. It's another thing for like an entire committee of people to read this and go, you got this character who can just do all this stuff. Is that what you really wanted to go for? It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do all this CGI. We'll do all these things. Like, great, okay.
Well, why do you think that they made her such a blank slate personality-wise, so that anyone can project themselves onto her?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that's
a pair of pants, yeah.
It's part of the components of being a Mary Sue. You have this sort of generic, personality-wise, nobody who's just a power fantasy on every level. So
they kind of use the romantic protagonist formula for Rey when they should have been not using that. We should have been using the traditional hero's journey protagonist.
Right, the every man, every woman, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Starts off as a nobody, builds up as they go along. Actually has conflict. Yeah.
Usually your romantic protagonist is a pair of pants, like Rey is.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't really work. Doesn't really work in the Star Wars formula.
I need a nice robe, nice generic robe that we can non-gender someone and allow them to grow into whatever gender they like.
The ability only has meaning in the context of Luke's character arc. He wanted to go off on an adventure and join his friends in fighting the Empire. He realized that goal and became the leader of the rebellion, and believed that becoming a Jedi would make him an even more powerful warrior.
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Force not make one great.
He barely knew anything about the Force and fundamentally misunderstood what being a Jedi was about.
Adventure. A Jedi craves not these things. No weapons. You will not.
It's not just about him wanting to become a stronger warrior, though. It was also about him following in his father's footsteps, which was very important to him as established in the first movie.
And he kept saying, I want to become a great Jedi like my father, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Which is actually a natural thing to do from son to father. They want to. That's actually part of the hero's journey. In fact, you have the conflict with the father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to get a fourth person coming on. Going to give us some time, so we can keep going on the stream. So I don't know how long this is going to take, but we'll see how our conversation.
I mean, it's a long video, and Watcherman pointed out, I'm surprised you guys didn't roast him for saying the Force jump was useless right after he literally showed Luke using it to escape being frozen. Do you want to rewind to that, because he said it just 15 seconds or so ago?
The Emperor is shooting lightning out of his hands. It's fair to say that this was being made up as they went along. And that doesn't diminish the Force, and literally fans take things. I assume there's a 20-page Wikipedia article about Jedi leg ligaments. The ability only has meaning in the context of Luke's character arc. He wanted to go off on an adventure. If you list every ability seen in A New Hope, they don't exactly make the most sense together. The Empire Strikes Back expanded those abilities, with Luke outright using telekinesis, gaining superhuman agility, and seeing through time. By the end of Return of the Jedi, the Emperor is shooting lightning out of his hands. It's fair to say that this was being made up as they went along. And that doesn't diminish the Force in any way. It was an incredibly flexible plot device, something to move the story and characters along that could take whatever form the writers needed. This is a good illustration of how the Force was used. It doesn't matter that Luke can jump 20 feet in the air. That ability is never important.
Yes, it does. So EFAP pointed this out, and I guess I'll go ahead and just so Gustavo knows, it's not that they're trying to avoid copying EFAP's points. It's just that, I don't think that either of you two have watched EFAP, and I forgot about this one. But I have no problem with copying a point that EFAP made if it was a good point. So the whole plan here was to have Luke be frozen in carbonite. That's why Darth Vader tried freezing him in carbonite, right? That's plan A. And it doesn't work because he gets out of that situation. So, no, it's not useless.
Yeah, it kind of saved his life.
Yeah, it prolonged the fight, and then also, it prevented him from being taken straight to the Emperor. It allowed him to find out that Darth Vader is his father, and then he escapes, and then manages to, concoct a plan to bring his father back. Also, to save Han Solo's life from Jabba. There's a lot of consequences that happen from him being able to do this in this instance. Also, I don't think that the idea of a high jump like this using the Force is that big of a stretch compared to, God, Force Ghost Lightning.
Well, trying to lift an X-Wing is probably a little bit more difficult than launching yourself in the air a few meters. So, big difference in power.
X-Wing's a little heavier than Luke Skywalker is.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit, just a little bit.
To the story. But knowing how literally fans take things, I assume there's a 20-page Wikipedia article about Jedi leg ligaments. The ability only has meaning in the context of Luke's character arc. He wanted to go off on an adventure and join his friends in fighting the Empire.
I don't see how that has a meaning just in a character arc. It's establishing lore. You're establishing this setting. You're establishing how this mystical force works. It's that's a layer of meaning outside of a character.
At this point in the trilogy, the only Force users that we've seen are, so you've got Yoda, a puppet who they're not going to have the tech or means to show doing all kinds of flips and shit, which is why they didn't do that until they could make Yoda with CGI in the prequels. And then you've got Ben Kenobi, an old man, and you've got Darth Vader, a cyborg, and then you have Luke Skywalker, a young and agile and spry young man. I would say that it's reasonable to use that after he's done some training, especially when they're showing him doing backflips and other acrobatic shit way before him actually doing this like super jump that saves his life there, which at least sets that up. I don't think that's a problem, especially in the second movie.
He realized that goal and became the leader of the rebellion, and believed that becoming a Jedi would make him an even more powerful warrior.
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Force not make one great.
He barely knew anything about the Force and fundamentally misunderstood what being a Jedi was about.
Adventure. A Jedi craves not these things. Your weapons. You will not need them.
It's essential for growth. I mean, that little point right there is essential for growth. He has to start off in a place of naivete, a place of just youthful arrogance, and then you grow and mature and become wiser. That's why he's this brazen kind of like a adventurous youth, and then he meets Yoda, and then he goes through his training and gains wisdom. He's already established himself as kind of capable with the powers. He's gained power, but he's kind of learning that his power is kind of useless. His power is very limited without the wisdom behind it to actually use it. And that's what the whole Yoda segment is for.
Yeah, he's actually being trained. He's making mistakes. He's not perfect. He's doing things and he's failing. It's like, wow, it's normal. He's doing normal things a normal person would do when they do something for the first time or the second time. This is what you should have seen in The Last Jedi.
But we didn't. She's just awesome. They didn't want to have that pesky training nonsense. She's already just born incredible.
Yeah, the first training lesson was what Luke just rambled on, and then the second one she broke some rocks, and then there was no third one. That was about it, I think.
Yeah, but that was it. She started lifting mountains immediately.
Not to mention that there's a bit of passage of time in Empire Strikes Back. It's some months, right? Whereas with The Last Jedi, it's pretty clear that only about a week has passed in total, like in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Maybe not even it ends on a cliffhanger, literally the same time as we see Rey hand the lightsaber to Luke. So that is essentially instant. There's really no time lag. It's while she's there, you could argue maybe 2-3 days tops. And
at least like only a few days. Remember, they have a ticking clock. The Resistance fleet is running out of fuel. It's about to be destroyed, and so she's there maybe maximum 3 days, maybe not even that, and she's already cracking the ground and beating up Luke Skywalker.
It was only the day before The Last Jedi began, where she found out that the Force was real from Han, because it was either from Han, like it was either 1 or 2 days, like it was 2 days tops, because then they go to Takodana and then she finds the lightsaber, and then that same day she's taken to Starkiller Base, and then she fights Kylo Ren, and so she basically fights Kylo Ren and does Jedi mind tricks and all this stuff within 24 hours of learning that the Force is actually real. And then right after that, now I don't know how long it takes for her to get to Ahch-To, but I imagine that, if she's got a map to Luke Skywalker and she just jumps through hyperspace, it's not going to take long at all. So it's not going to be like several days or weeks or whatever. I'm assuming it's hours tops. So then, and not to mention that in The Force Awakens, they mentioned that the First Order has the location of the Resistance base on Dakar, the planet that they're on in The Force Awakens. So then Last Jedi opens with the First Order arriving there immediately, which follows like, okay, so basically this is taking place right after Starkiller Base got destroyed.
Yeah, there's no time lag between the two movies, so she figured this all out within days.
And they can't have possibly been chasing the Resistance for months because they mention the fuel. They're running out of fuel. You can't be running out of fuel for months.
That's a ticking clock that they set up right from the beginning.
It was days.
At most.
Within 4 days, tops, Rey is able to lift a 4 days of finding out that the Force is real, mind you. Rey is able to lift up a mountain of boulders.
She's cracking planets in half, going through dark side anuses.
She can
half mountains.
She can do Jedi mind tricks without doing the hand waving thing. Because her hands are restrained when she first does that to the Daniel Craig stormtrooper.
She's like she's dominating minds right off the bat. She absorbs people's powers through their brains. It's ridiculous.
Doesn't even have to do the little hand waving thing that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan had to do. And every other Jedi Master that had to do it.
She's just that awesome though. She doesn't have to do any of that. Rules just bend to her will.
Yeah, but Kylo Ren was shot in the chest, and he was weak. And
yeah, I love that excuse. It's not a very good one at all. I just love it though.
It's like I'm up against Muhammad Ali, but his shoulder's kind of off. He's not he's not punching me with his left hand at all. It's like, oh, I'm gonna dominate this guy. Look out, guys!
And just never mind the fact that he almost kills Finn, and Finn, believe it or not, is canonically a child soldier trained from almost birth, as stated by General Hux. That he has been trained for probably decades in the art of soldiering and fighting, and even if he's the worst stormtrooper of the lot, he should be better than the average person. So he should definitely be better than Rey. But Kylo Ren beats him up pretty good, pretty easily. But with Rey, that's the challenge. Unarmed scavenger, and that's a untrained scavenger, and that's a challenge.
I'll actually push back against you a little bit when it comes to Finn. Finn gets his ass kicked by a stormtrooper. I would imagine that Kylo Ren should be able to handle him pretty well. And a lightsaber is a pretty unique weapon in that only the hilt is going to have any weight to it, whereas the blade shouldn't. And I don't think that Rey should be that good with it for the same reasons. Like a staff is not the same weapon as a fucking lightsaber or
two
even
totally
a sword.
Different things. Yeah,
it's not a sword-like weapon as it's become known in EFAP lore. But I don't have a problem with him easily beating Finn. However, I do have problems with Rey getting the upper hand on him, especially like the excuse, oh well, he got injured by Chewie. He tanked Chewbacca's bowcaster shot and didn't have any problem fighting Finn at all. So I don't buy it.
Yeah,
that's exactly the point. That because even if Finn was the worst stormtrooper and he loses to other stormtroopers and everything, he should at least be better than Rey, who has no formal train, who hasn't been trained since birth to fight.
Yeah, and in the previous scene, the reason why Finn even sprang into action was Rey was thrown up in the air 4 stories, up against a tree, then came crashed down onto the ground and was knocked out. So either she broke some bones on her legs, she had the wind knocked out of her, she had a concussion. And, that's not exactly fighting form, okay? So
yeah, Kylo Ren yeeted her into a tree.
She's fine, though. She's like.
Why does he not continue using the Force, though? Like, he forgets the lightsaber.
Because if he did that, he would win, and they can't have that. Can't have him win.
No, she beats him with the Force pull, because she gets the lightsaber instead of him, and I guess that just demoralizes him from trying to use the Force again for the rest of the fight.
He was too embarrassed.
That whole scene first off, she never even seen what a force pull was. Secondly, that lightsaber was coming directly at him while he was also trying to. So they're actually on the same plane. They're in the same dimension of where the direction that the force is or the lightsaber is coming at. All you have to do is grab it. He was like, "Oh, I have to get out of the way of this thing." It's like,
the Lego Force Awakens game pointed this out. They had Adam Driver voice a line where he's like, I could just go over there and pick it up myself, but this looks cooler. And yeah, like this I don't know, man. It's so silly that you've got Rey, who has never force pulled anything in her life, and she manages to beat Kylo Ren at the first Force tug of war that they have.
I mean, obviously, she gained enough experience where she can just put points in Force pool.
Well, yeah, and even if she had a sword, like a normal sword as a weapon, like the difference between that and a lightsaber are just so vast. Like,
you might be able to cut yourself with a sword, but if you cut yourself with a lightsaber, you cut something off.
Yeah.
Very different.
The weight, the handling, the length, everything is totally different.
Yeah. Well, they did try to fix this in the novelizations of The Last Jedi, where they basically said that when Kylo tried mind probing Rey, that basically allowed her to download his force training like she's fucking Peter Petrelli from Heroes.
Yeah, that's
the dumbest thing. Well, not the dumbest. It's one of the heard about The Last Jedi.
There is an aspect to the KOTOR series where we have objects that have Sith, or I think they're just Sith holocrons. I think there might have been some Jedi holocrons as well, where if you are force trained, you could actually read the information, but you can't just download it. You can't just like, oh, it's in my brain now. You could feel it, and it gets presented. You could unlock it, and it plays like it normally would if you had a computer disk or something like that. So that's part of it. Also, there's some weird mystical element where it's like there's the voice of the person who actually recorded it as well. There's a bit of discrepancy within the first KOTOR where it's like you have Bastilla's father who recorded his voice, so it's not really force dependent. So there's a bit of a discrepancy, but we have lore which could have been used to have maybe Rey go on a MacGuffin search or something, and imagine she found a holocron in her scavenging. Like that would have been something. It's like, oh wow, I have this mystical artifact, which I can now see visions or something. Like what the hell's going on? And that's the precursor to her journey. But
that would have been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there are like 3 things that I think that you just shouldn't do ever when you're dealing with like anything resembling superpowers or force powers or whatever in fiction. So those 3 things would be like time travel. It just fucks everything up. It will fuck the stakes in your story. An anti-death type power. You know, like did you guys see Kingsman: The Golden Circle?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
the alpha gel.
Yeah, the alpha gel, the headshot cure gel, basically.
Yeah, that was
fucking breaks that world.
It cures headshots. I have no idea how it works. It just works somehow, like the purge. It just works.
If you get shot in the head in Kingsman, don't worry, you're fine. Just get the headshot gel. And then the other thing is the Peter Petrelli power mimicry thing. Did you guys ever watch Heroes?
Oh yeah.
So fucking Peter Petrelli being able to have all of the powers just by coming in contact with anyone. Like they had to nerf him in season 3 because like he has way too many powers. He has to only have like 1 power at a time, basically, and then that worked. Or like with Rogue and X-Men, she can only absorb 1 power if she's like touching someone.
There was a character in Generation X called Sync, and he could actually, if he's in close proximity to a mutant, he can do what they do. But after they walk away from a certain distance, then he can't do that anymore. So all these ideas in Heroes are like every comic book reader from the past 20 years. It's like, yeah, we know it. Yeah, this is this guy. Yeah. So
well, it's funny because like these 3 things that you just shouldn't do, otherwise it'll fuck the stakes. Star Wars has done them all. The Force time travel, that's in Rebels. The Force healing, that's in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, really?
They actually have a character brought back to life with the Force.
I think Rey kills Kylo and then she brings him back or something.
Oh no!
She stabs him, but then heals his wound. But it's a different character. Do you guys really care for spoilers?
No, especially not for that movie.
Okay. Well, chat. I want the chat to answer if they care about me spoiling this movie if they haven't seen it yet. Because I'll totally do it. And then, of course, there's the Force downloading thing, which is not in the movies, so someone pointed out that shouldn't count, but it's still in the fucking books. It's still something that they resorted to.
No, it's in the movie. It's just not explained as such in the movie. Like she still downloads the powers from his brain.
Well, it's not.
It's not explained.
It's not confirmed in the movie, though. It's confirmed in the book.
Yeah, but she's still they still have that contest where he tries to probe her, and then she probes back. And all of a sudden, she's able to do all these things. So that's like that was a retcon. We have to go back and explain this stuff. It's ridiculous.
All right, I'm getting people saying that I should spoil it. So I'm surprised that you don't know about this already, LiteratureDevil, but or Smudboy. So at the end of the movie, Kylo Ren is redeemed. Okay, and he's through unknown means he obtains a TIE fighter. We don't see how he obtains it. He basically Bruce Wayne from The Dark Knight Rises is his way over to the planet where Palpatine is and where Rey is confronting Palpatine, and he has a new lightsaber. He's given Anakin's lightsaber while Rey's using Leia's lightsaber that Luke had the whole time that he didn't tell anyone about until this movie. And then basically, before he can do anything to help fight the Emperor, Palpatine basically knocks both of them out, and then he yeets Ben into a bottomless pit, seemingly killing him. Okay, and then Rey uses both lightsabers, forms an X with them, and Palpatine is trying to blast her with his Force lightning, and he's like, "I am all the Sith," and then she says, "And I," and then she grabs the second lightsaber, and she's like, "Am all the Jedi," and then she starts making her way over to him. He's continuing to blast Force lightning at her. She's deflecting it, and then eventually it causes it deflects the Force lightning back to him, and then causes him to explode. and then
I saw that part. Part.
Well, then a minute after that happens, Rey's walking around, and then she collapses dead to the ground. And then, just when you think, oh, well, they actually at least had Rey, sacrifice her life to kill the Emperor, right? Well, then Kylo Ren, who was yeeted into a bottomless abyss, then climbs his way out through unknown means, cradles Rey's body, and then he just knows how to bring her back to life, and does so. And then they kiss, and then immediately afterwards, he slumps over and he dies because he had to give her his life force.
That's pretty manly, actually. That part's pretty bad.
Well, it's funny because she doesn't become one with the Force. She stays in a physical form long enough for him to heal her. But then when Kylo dies, he becomes one with the Force, so there's no bringing him back.
It sounds like a really bad Babylon 5 episode.
So, they had Kylo, I guess, do something really manly at the end. He scales this bottomless pit, goes over and saves the female protagonist by giving his life away, and then he dies. At least he got to do a little bit of manly stuff out of all three movies. But what's with Palpatine with his lightning stuff? Can he not stop? Because this happens in the prequels too. He just cannot stop doing his lightning, and he destroys his own face.
Well, you know how when you get electrocuted, you're if you grab onto a bare wire or something, you get electrocuted. You can't let it go. It's the same logic.
How does that work the same way? He's just shooting lightning. Is this a reflex? He's I don't know.
The Force works in mysterious ways.
Can he just? Does he have to clench his butt cheeks when he shoots Force lightning?
I don't know.
You think he would have learned some other Force ability over the years that maybe I should try Force push? Nah.
This happens.
Well, that's the thing.
Every time
he uses the Force to pick up Kylo and then push him into a pit. Why he doesn't just do that with Rey and do the same thing, I don't know.
She has plot armor.
Oh, plot armor to the max.
She has Force plot armor.
Yeah, it's another staple of a Mary Sue character.
Everyone becomes dumber.
Oddly enough, another aspect of a Mary Sue character is all of a sudden they are the relative of someone who is already established. So she's the granddaughter of Palpatine. That's another point on the Mary Sue chart.
I'm not entirely sure about that. People were arguing that she was a Mary Sue because she was a nobody and she was just able to do all this stuff out of nowhere. Whereas at least with her being a Palpatine, sort of explains why she's so powerful. She has a bloodline that's strong enough in the Force to do what she does. I thought that was J.J. Abrams trying to salvage, trying to fix it with, which is preferable to her being a nobody. In terms of if you're going to have a character be as powerful as Rey, they can't be a nobody. They have to be a Skywalker or a Palpatine.
Oh yeah,
so
if they have some sort of special blood, something like that. They have to.
Yeah. So I don't think that it really fits in when it comes to Rey, just because like of that. They wrote themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
But I do understand like what you mean. Where like they just happen to be related to
that was an established rule
main
in
character.
Star Trek, because that's a Star Trek fanzine rule, was you can't have your character related to one of the main characters in any way. Like they can't be like a hidden sister or something.
Oh yeah. Like when it comes to fanfic, like in Supernatural, like I'm the Winchester brothers' lost sister or something.
yeah, it happens all the time, and that's why I thought it was kind of funny.
All right, let's keep going because we got a lot to go through.
Yeah, we do.
He struggled through a series of failures and was just beginning to make progress when he sensed his friends were in trouble. He arrogantly believed that he was powerful enough to handle the traps set for him and left against Yoda's warnings. And in the ensuing fight, we see that Luke is powerful, performing superhuman feats of strength. Even Vader is impressed with his abilities.
Most impressive.
But as the fight goes on, Luke realizes that he's completely outmatched. The Force is much bigger than he knew, and his abilities amounted to nothing. This moment was just a stepping stone on the way to this moment. And they could have demonstrated Luke's power any number of ways. Jumping seems like it was just an arbitrary match for the layout of the freezing chamber. If the room had been different, maybe Luke could have used super speed instead. The literal form the Force took didn't matter. It was always working in the service.
So apparently George Lucas might have said somewhere that the Force super speed in The Phantom Menace was like an editing mistake or something. Whether it was or wasn't, it's stupid. I think that like Force super speed is one of those things where, like, again, I can be okay with Force pyrokinesis. Force super speed is one of those things, as well as like forced healing. That I'd be like, yeah, try again. Super speed will break your stakes. It's a ridiculously overpowered power.
They kind of forgot that they could do them, because in the same movie they could. There's plenty of places where they could have actually used super speed to very positive effect.
Throughout the entire saga, man, why doesn't Obi-Wan use super speed on the Death Star? Why don't all the Jedi use super speed when they're like fighting the Sith and shit?
It makes it just like everyone turns invisible and is fighting each other at super. It's like Dragon Ball Z all of a sudden.
Yeah, I would be okay with the idea of like Force invisibility if the idea is you're basically playing a Jedi mind trick on someone to like, how in X-Men Xavier can basically like go into people's minds and make them think that stuff that's there isn't actually there.
Oh yeah,
I'd be okay with that sort of thing, but actual Force invisibility or Force super speed or whatever, nah.
It's a bit hokey. I always said, well, it's the same idea as jumping really high and just going in a lateral move. So
you kind of have that power in the Force Unleashed, but it's not super speed. It's more like he just bounding kind of really quickly. Like he has.
Oh yeah.
To kind of go taking like a leap, some sort of leap or something.
Right.
Well, I'd also be okay if it was just like a faster sprint, like how Captain America can like run faster than the average person, but he's not like Quicksilver,
Yeah.
I'd be okay with something like that with the Jedi, but not Quicksilver shit.
Of the story and the characters. But after years of worshipping these movies, fans demand that it work the other way around. The Force is super important, and your story and characters had better work in the service of it. And that means a lot.
Well, no, we're just saying that it's been established, so those are the rules of the game. The same way you establish spaceships and technology and lineage and the setting, the politics, etc. When you suddenly have the Resistance, who are actually the members of the Republic, fighting this upstart empire, or whatever the remnants of the empire were, and no one gives a crap, something's wrong with the setting. That's all we want. We want consistency from what came before. That's it. It's not because the Force is magical and it can become many things. We know it can become. If it can become something else, great. Make it believable. Doesn't matter what it is. If you can like summon dragons that can come out of the sky, it's like, okay, that's a stretch. You got to sort of run that by how that works. Maybe there's like some Asian force power from some Asian style alien planet that can do that. Great. Okay. Maybe he can do stuff like that. Hokey as crap. I probably wouldn't like it because it doesn't confine to the basics of what force is, telekinesis and telepathy. So maybe that's possible. Maybe it's technologically assisted. Maybe there's some other aspect to it. But you have to make it believable. That's the only real need in a story, is to have mysticism make some sense.
Yeah. Okay, so the idea of like a astral projection with the Force, I'm fine with that. The idea of like Force FaceTiming, I'm also fine with that. The idea of holding a blaster bolt in the air, I'm also fine with that. Flying through space or by like force pulling while you're like after you've lost consciousness already and then you regain consciousness, and I don't know, the fucking flying scene was so silly looking. And Force Ghost Yoda being able to call upon lightning strikes, I have to draw the line there.
What's the point of being alive if you could just come back as a Force Ghost, be invincible, and then still do all the same stuff you could do as when you were alive as a Force Ghost?
Yoda could now just destroy the First Order just by teleporting anywhere he wants, lighting
he's
shit
just
on
being
fire,
lazy at this point,
and laughing his ass off. It's like that's all he'd have to do.
Get to work, Yoda. You stop being lazy.
Yeah.
Go destroy all the bad guys. Like what's keeping you? You already destroyed a tree.
He's also holding a stick as a ghost, and in Rise of Skywalker, there's a scene where Rey tries throwing away Anakin's lightsaber, and Luke catches it. So Force Ghost Luke holds Anakin's lightsaber, and it makes you think, so could he just turn that thing on? Like, if he's able to hold it, why wouldn't he be able to turn it on and then
fight somebody?
Wasn't Anakin's lightsaber destroyed in the previous movie? I could have sworn that happened.
They basically space duct tape it back together. It's
what?
Yes, if you look at like the promotional shit, there's like this brown band around where it was severed. It basically they welded it back together. It was J.J. Abrams essentially retconning the destruction of the lightsaber. And then the funniest thing is, at the very end of the movie, they reveal that Rey has salvaged parts from her staff. And
her
turned
staff.
her staff from The Force Awakens.
It's a stick with metal on it. What does that do?
Well, apparently, so like the ends of it, I guess, can be used as lightsaber emitters. And so, but this is at the very end of the movie, and she turns it on. It's the stupidest thing. She twists like a ring on it to turn it on. It's the most impractical way of activating a lightsaber I've ever seen, and it's got like this golden blade. I'm thinking, gee, it would have been kind of cool if you actually had this throughout the whole movie. If only the other lightsaber that you had been destroyed in the previous movie. But no, they just retconned that and saved the whole having Rey use her own lightsaber thing till the very end of the movie.
Wow.
After Palpatine was defeated, so she doesn't actually use it against anyone. She just has her lightsaber. She turns it on. Why she turns it on, I don't know. She's just like looking at it, and then she
Same
turns
reason
it
Darth
back
Maul
off.
does.
Yeah, exactly.
Just want to turn it on if it looks cool.
Look at my golden lightsaber with my impractical ring activation.
Also, in the video right here, this argument is essentially it's space wizards doing space magic argument. Okay, it's a fantasy, and this is the argument I've seen so many times that every time you argue that the Force has rules or established methods of how it works, people come out and say, "Well, you can do anything you want with it. The Force can do anything because it's wizards and it's fiction and it's space fantasy." And the answer is no. He's just saying that, you want, you fans, you little man babies, want the Force to do whatever you want to do because it's sacred. When it was in the past, it was just used to serve the plot. Not anymore. You could do that with the original trilogy, like I said, but here now it's been established. You have to follow the rules that have already been established. You can't just make up new things so outrageously, like you do in these movies.
These are the same people, by the way, that say it would just be so like you just want Luke Skywalker to rip Star Destroyers from the sky and crush AT-ATs with the Force. That's just so stupid. That's ridiculous.
Yes, I kind of did. Yeah, I did. Honestly, yes, I wanted to see that. I want to see that happen.
I mean, it would have been cool, but I also would have thought that would have been ridiculous. I didn't need to see him rip Star Destroyers from the sky. I would have been just cool with him just acting in character.
I want to see Luke Skywalker just come out and start wrecking shop a little bit, and then just to scare them into submission, and then you can use his Jedi stuff to go into the wisdom aspect of it.
What I would have been okay with, I guess, is like if the AT-ATs that fired upon him, like he actually froze their shots in the air, like what you saw in How It Should Have Ended.
Yeah, or something like that.
That follows, I guess, and then he could either dissipate them or he could send them back to the AT-ATs or something. Like I don't know,
like something to force a truce or force him to retreat or something like that.
Yeah,
where he comes off. I want to see basically what I wanted to see was Luke Skywalker walk out into the field and become a dominant, almost unstoppable force. That he's like a force of nature because it's been 36 years. He has to be. I want him to see him be stronger, wiser, that sort of thing. He's temperate, so he kind of like forces the conflict to end by his very presence, at least for a little bit.
Honestly, the only Force user that I could actually buy like crushing an AT-AT with the Force would probably be Snoke, who is able to create a connection between Kylo and Rey without dying, and Kylo says the effort would kill you to Rey. So it's like if he's able to do that without dying, then he could probably be the only person in the whole universe that could crush an AT-AT with a Force, considering that Luke dies because he used up his Force batteries doing this astral projection trick.
That was really stupid. He should have at least went there on in person. Like, what was the point of him just?
So some people will say, "Oh, well, his X-wing was underwater, right?"
So,
well, here's the thing.
Doesn't his Force Ghost lift it out of the water and the Skywalker rises or whatever?
Yes,
I heard that happen. So
yes,
no excuses, weirdos.
There's people that actually have made that excuse for like the last 2 years, and then out comes Rise of Skywalker. It's like, nope, it's working perfectly fine. Christ.
So yeah, space wizards are bad because you don't understand how magic works, and you can do anything with them. So why complain about pre-established lore that we've seen through 8 other movies? Like, why would you do that?
Because that's how the good writing works. I don't know.
That's how
good writing. I don't know. That's how good writing works.
Nowadays, that's how it works. Unfortunately.
Seen in the originals with no more room for imagination or growth.
That's not how the Force works.
I used that in my last video. It's how the Force works because he's right. It's not how the Force works at all.
Why would he include that though? That's like he's even the guy who's seen it all is like, yeah, this is not how it's operated. It doesn't work this way, buddy.
Like he didn't even believe in the Force, but in the original trilogy, now he's like, I've seen enough for the Force to know that's not how the Force works. Okay.
It is actually a great line.
The 900-year-old puppet can come back as a blue ghost, but shooting a lightning bolt is blasphemy. When
Yes,
because then it defeats the point of just staying alive. Why would you stay alive if you can just come back as a blue invincible ghost and just do whatever you could usually do while you're alive, but as an invincible ghost?
This is more than being alive. I don't remember anyone summoning lightning from being a Jedi. It's like, hey, Jedi, we need our crops to grow. Well, give me a second. Let me just summon some water in the air and start raining for you. Oh, wow, thank you, Master Jedi. Like,
this is technically like Storm from X-Men. That's a thing that you can do with the Force now, is you can control the weather.
Essentially, yeah. And if he can do that, then imagine he can manipulate electrical currents in Star Destroyers or whatever, so he can just knock out an entire fleet.
Wait, hold on. Doesn't Emperor Palpatine shock the entire fleet in this new movie? I heard
yes, he does. What? He actually does. Yes, he points his hands to the sky and he blasts Force lightning out of all of them. And then it goes up into the sky and then it splits off It looks like a fucking tree made out of lightning. It spreads through the entire fleet, and it causes all the ships to start falling from the sky. But then Rey wakes up, and she then goes. She does her "I am all the Jedi" thing, and that redirects Palpatine's lightning onto her. And then all the ships that are in a free fall down to the surface of the planet, they get all their power back, and then they're able to start flying again.
That part was so stupid when I read it. I didn't know that would actually be in there.
Oh, it's actually in there.
That's like what a 13-year-old would make fun of an 11-year-old for saying. That's really stupid.
Well, like the earlier in the film, there's like this tug of war that Kylo and Rey have between like over this First Order troop transport, where Chewie is on board supposedly as a prisoner. And because Kylo gains the upper hand in that tug of war, Rey gets angry and accidentally shoots out force lightning from her hands, blowing the ship up. And yes, it makes them think that they killed Chewbacca. and then it gets better. Then 2 minutes later, they reveal on the First Order Star Destroyer, they blew up one of our transport ships, but the other one had this prisoner. It's Chewbacca. So they fake out Chewie's death, and they have this big emotional moment where Rey thinks that she killed Chewie.
Whoa.
But then literally 2 minutes later, they reveal, no, Chewie's fine, guys. Don't worry.
So did she hurt anyone? It was just an explosion for nothing?
Yeah, well, she killed a bunch of stormtroopers on board.
Oh, accidentally. She was so badass. She accidentally started using force lightning, which is a Sith power, and just
and a single bolt of force lightning blows up the ship.
Oh my god, this is going to be an amazing movie.
Bring alcohol. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to brown bag it the entire time.
So that's real, though.
You know what's funny is that was actually one of the moments in the, where everyone in the theater started laughing. Like, this is supposed to be oh my god, you killed Chewie moment, but people started laughing at it.
I wonder why. Wasn't that funny?
I mean, it was just a pretty absurd situation. It was already kind of absurd seeing Rey just pull a ship back down. That was like flying up into space, down back onto the surface of the planet.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. I think that's enough spoilers for one night.
Yeah, okay.
This sounds amazing. Okay, let's see. Let's see what he has to say about Ghost Yoda being okay with Law here.
One said,
"If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine."
I'd like to think he meant he could do a little more than just hang around and shoot the shit.
Okay, yeah, this kind of scene, it's like, maybe he was just saying that to make Vader feel a little off guard. Maybe he was trying to hype him up so he can get Luke to escape and save Luke because he's, his old buddy, his old pal. Hey, Vader, how's it going, man? Hey, I'm going to be stronger than you, and you're a Sith now, so you like power, right? Well, I'm going to be even better than you. Maybe that's all he's saying. Maybe just a bunch of words.
I mean, in the perspective of the Jedi, it's not physical force that is the true power, it's wisdom. And now that Obi-Wan Kenobi can return as a Force ghost, he's free to share his wisdom anywhere and anytime he wants, unimpeded. Like there's nothing Darth Vader can do to stop him.
He is free to continue observing the events of the universe as well as mentoring Luke beyond the grave.
Yeah, he can't stop him. That's a pretty big deal.
Right, but this guy thinks, oh no, he's gonna, summon lightning and shit. You're like, this is your justification? Several movies later? Are you serious?
It's basically immortality. Like, okay, I mean, he basically, even though he's not in a physical form, his consciousness lives on for basically an indefinite period of time.
I like how he just mentioned that, that Luke Skywalker was the one who didn't understand the Jedi, and then he used the clip of Yoda saying, "Jedis do not seek adventure; it's the wisdom. It's we use our minds and our wisdom to just de-escalate conflict, not really force." And then he goes off and saying, "Well, what's what's Obi-Wan Kenobi talking about? Just walking around and just talking? No, he must mean being able to summon lightning from the sky. I think Mr. Video Presenter, you kind of did the same thing Luke did. You kind of went your own way and misinterpreted what the Jedi meant.
As I said before to you guys before we started the video, this is a lot of headcanon and projection from all these defenders. Like, well, why wouldn't they do that? Well, why couldn't they? It's like, well, that's not what's in the film. So, like, there are no other symbols we can generate or themes we can generate by observing a tree. Like, what does the tree represent to people? Like, all these ridiculous interpretations. So it's just the same old angle of, well, I think it could be this way if you look at it that way. It's like, yeah, but that's not what happens in the movie. So
it was clear that he was holding back his full potential.
Oh yeah, it was totally clear. Yeah. It was, when he dies, that's when his real potential. That's, he's an old man. Yeah, he's not he's not showing 100%. Wait till he dies, then you'll see. Whoa, look out. What is he talking about?
Yeah, that is for this. I mean, Obi-Wan coming back as a Force ghost is really, really powerful. Not even Darth Vader can stop him now, which means that he is more powerful than Darth Vader could ever have imagined from a certain point of view.
If I understand Force ghosts, it's the idea that the original person, the personality is gone, but their essence, not them themselves, they themselves, but their intelligence, their wisdom, and what they were lives on. And only certain other Jedi can communicate to those. It's not the actual person. But it seems as if, at least now in the extended trilogy, it's like, oh yeah, Yoda can go anywhere.
Doesn't Han Solo come up as a Force ghost? I heard Han Solo comes up as a Force ghost.
Whoa.
He's not a Force ghost. He's a hallucination of Kylo Ren's. So he shows up after Kylo Ren gets stabbed and then Force healed. And then, he's not in some blue glow like Force ghosts are. But basically, Kylo Ren hallucinates his dad and hallucinates his dad telling him that it's never too late to turn back to the light, and that's what convinces Kylo to abandon the dark side. Kylo Ren becomes good again because of a hallucination.
Yay, that's such a great arc.
This could be awesome.
It's such an arbitrary development.
Just wait till the third movie comes out. It'll cure Rey from Mary Sewishness. All right. Fantastic.
I would be so surprised if they actually made another trilogy where they actually had Rey go through the same thing that Luke goes through, where they turn her into a loser.
I want no more Rey. I want scrap all this.
They're just not going to do that. They would never do that with Rey.
No, they wouldn't. They can't. She's going to become better and better, more powerful. She's going to get more and more powers and be liked by more and more people. That's the way she's going to go.
She'll create Force reverse aging so that she's always young and beautiful, even when she's like 300 years old.
Now, after reading all the spoilers, I was almost certain that they're going to actually do a thing by sending her out into space, and she's going to force pull all the planets back together or something.
That doesn't happen, thankfully. But
not yet. It hasn't happened.
Not yet. Not yet. Maybe she'll pull a Thanos and she'll throw a moon at the next Sith Lord that tries to come to power.
It's that ridiculous. Like, okay, he's another enormous ship, another enormous fleet. Let's just send Rey out there in a ship. She doesn't even need a spacesuit. She can just jump out into space and just start chucking planets at people.
Oh yeah, she'll make a force field around her that protects her from the vacuum of space.
Not even. She can just breathe in space now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Leia taught her. Remember, that's how it works.
To face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot interfere.
So why is a lightning bolt out of the question? Just because we haven't seen it before?
Okay, so if
he just said he couldn't interfere.
I can't.
There you go.
But Yoda over here, he can light shit on fire. Yeah,
I mean,
Yoda
a
can do
lightning
it.
bolt is pretty. That's interfering. I think.
I'm
Arson
sorry.
is interfering.
I gotta respond to Michael Dorsey here. What's a good case for Vader's turn to the light side not being arbitrary? The fact that the entire arc between him and Luke is about Luke trying to turn him back to the light side. The fact that his turn to the light side comes about because Palpatine is about to kill his son, and that's following through on a bunch of other events that then pressures Vader to finally give up and give up the dark side, essentially. Do you guys have anything else to add to that? It's not the same thing as a fucking vision of his dead dad
and suddenly
coming about out of fucking nowhere.
Flip the switch, and suddenly you're good again. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think you want to have dreams that start telling you what to do to be a plot point. That's pretty stupid. So
yeah, it's not a hallucination. It's actually like a hey, your family member is being killed in front of you. If you don't,
Darth Vader is kind of built up with.
Yeah,
I don't even know if Kylo Ren really has a character, so I'm not really sure what they did there.
They don't know what they want to do with him. He's conflicted, but he just acts so inconsistently. So, all right.
People hated Leia pulling herself through zero gravity, which isn't even a new ability, just an old one in a new context.
Okay, by zero gravity, we mean a vacuum. And by vacuum, we mean outer space, where there's a goddamn star shining in your face with raw radiation hitting your skin, which should be boiling and expanding, but instead it's frozen. Okay, so star not hot? Okay, great.
Actually, well, so the side of you that's facing the star would be boiling, but then the side that's facing away from the star is going to be frozen.
Right.
It's a very you're being boiled and frozen to death at the same time while also not being able to breathe. It's a very painful way to go out.
And that's just if the ideal conditions, and they've shown experiments with this with monkeys, and the first time they shot the monkey up in the space and the first astronaut in space, et cetera, et cetera. But we're talking about her leaving a vessel with explosive velocity. So basically an explosion occurred. She's gotten cut up. She's blasted into space. Her lungs completely deflate. Whatever that does to your body, I don't want to know. And then you're frozen. And then you start cooking. And you're unconscious.
It's pretty gruesome.
The fact that she's unconscious, you cannot regain consciousness back in a vacuum when you are unconscious.
You can if you're a whammon.
Yeah, if you've got fallopian force powers, you can do it.
The force is female.
That special X chromosome just defends you from vacuums for some reason.
Yeah.
And yes, you can survive in space for a minute or two.
No, you can't.
No, you cannot. Notice he's saying researchers found that chimpanzees could survive up to 3.5 minutes in near vacuum conditions. Number one, Leia's not a chimpanzee, and secondly, near vacuum conditions. Space is not a near vacuum condition. It's is a vacuum.
It's gone full vacuum. Okay, it's not near vacuum. It's not almost there. There's a difference between almost dead and dead. Okay.
Also, would this near vacuum condition happen to have a star that's boiling you alive? Would it happen to be fucking freezing cold as well?
We're not talking about freezing cold. We're talking about minus 273 degrees Celsius. It's how cold do you want to get? Absolute zero cold. That's how cold. Okay. So yeah, the transfer of energy from vacuum from skin, it's going to take some time, but it's a very small, thin layer of skin between your fleshy, watery, bloody body tissue and the vacuum of the void. So, not good. Not a good environment.
There could be time for fellow crew members to rescue and repressurize you with few ill effects. That's not what happens. She rescues herself after she regains consciousness.
It's just a silly argument, and we have actual quotes from history, from actual people who have gone through these issues, and you could do some science experiments. I don't know why you'd need to.
And then she's just fine though. She's just she takes a nap and she's all good to go.
She's in a coma. That's it.
She's not even in a coma for very long. Just they're running out of fuel. She wakes up before they run out of fuel.
She would have brain damage. She would have severe problems walking. And
in fairness, Bacta is like it has some unknown properties for like healing in the Star Wars universe that would be far more advanced than anything that we have. So I'm willing to give some leeway there.
They put her in Bacta? I thought she just went into a coma.
Well, so they had. I mean, she's in a coma, but I mean, they could have like hooked her up to some Bacta, because you don't have to be like submerged fully in Bacta anymore. Like they've got Finn wearing a Bacta suit that heals his wounds. So I imagine that, given that she didn't have any exterior damage, it would have been all interior damage. They could have just hooked her up to like a Bacta IV, possibly.
But Finn was breathing while he had his spine cut. He was still
true.
She was in a vacuum of space.
If you lose oxygen to your brain after 30 seconds, you start getting damage. And if part of your body is frozen and the other part's cooking, I don't know.
Not having a good time.
Not ideal.
Well, that's not what happens in the movie, even though it should. Like right, I'm not disputing that. That's what shouldn't happen. I'm disputing that, like, well, because that hasn't happened in this movie because of the wonky space physics that are very confusing, there's a possibility that Bacta could have helped heal whatever effects she would have had from being in the vacuum.
He's also 70 or 80 or something, and just obviously a heavy smoker. So,
well, 60, yeah.
And all it would have taken was just a little bit of exposition, saying, "Okay, now she's in a coma. We've applied our level 7 or level 8 space exposure therapy." It's like, oh, you got technology for this. Okay, cool. Like something.
It's Star Wars. All you need is a little bit of explanation. Okay, we got her under whatever.
Yeah, give us some exposition on the technology that is not just magical force powers. It's just like, oh, no, we can, if you're in space for more than 30 minutes, maybe we can do something, but after that, you're dead. So
Star Wars has a mixture of magic and technology. It's in like the perfect universe to come up with some convenient explanation for why she'd be able to survive this, and yet they don't.
It's just force powers.
She could have had some really awesome
space wizards,
suit, like some awesome suit that would rehabilitate her, and she'd be like robotic, and she'd be like ready for combat, and she put on a mask, all this cool stuff. But no, she's just in her little robe. Behind a shield. It's like, oh yeah, she's ready to fight. Cool. Military leader.
She's ready to go again. She was survived the vacuum of space. She took a little nap, and she's ready. She's back at it.
Yeah.
Googled it. It's an awfully weird time to suddenly start caring about realism, isn't it? Luke's projection is right in line with how the Force was used in the originals. His greatest achievement wasn't blowing up the...
There's something called the suspension of disbelief. I mean, you have to stay within reason unless it's explained. And we can accept most of this stuff. Okay, they're even wearing like little masks to breathe. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to something like surviving the vacuum of space, it goes a little far unless you can adequately explain it, which they don't. It's just she just survives it. And she's suddenly a Jedi for some reason.
Yeah, if this were the first movie or the first scene of the first movie or whatever, and they established that people can survive the vacuum of space in this universe, fine. But that's a new revelation that comes a little late into the series.
Yeah, she should have had at least some training or something, but because Leia, up to that point, has never been established as having any sort of force potential or maybe not potential, but force training
right.
in any way. She's all of a sudden she's thrown out into vacuum of space, and she has amazing force abilities now.
It's a stretch by any means, and him trying to defend it without giving an adequate explanation of, yeah, you could totally survive space is a little hard to grasp there, sir, because he Googled it. I mean,
it's a big difference between it's jumping 20 feet and surviving the vacuum of space.
The Death Star. He was resisting the dark side and refusing to fight. That was the moment when he became a Jedi.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
His scene on Crate is that same idea on a larger scale, with Luke using everything he learned about the Force to resolve the situation peacefully. The people saying he genuinely should have been there, taking down AT-AT walkers like a badass, are missing the point. Maybe what those...
Oh yeah, so having a projected lightsaber is a peaceful solution to talking to Kylo Ren?
He didn't resolve anything. He just bought them some time. There was not a resolution.
Not only that, he didn't tell anyone what the hell he was doing. He just walked up, thinking all cool, gave a little kiss to Leia, and then walked away. And you're like, oh, he's going to go save the day. And then for whatever...
Yeah, he should have done something cool, right? Something.
Well, yeah, but tell people what the hell's going on. I'm in charge now. This is what's going to happen. Or I'm going to go out there. You guys keep running. That would have been fine. But no, Poe has to go, huh. Oh, I know what's going on.
Now's a good time.
It's like, where did that come from, Popo? Like, where'd you get that?
He read the script.
How do you know
what
he's
happened if they just watched him? What if they just watched him? Like, if like, okay, Luke Skywalker's here, he's going to save the day, he's going to drive them away.
Yeah, he just got hit by like 20 AT-ATs. He's fine. Oh, this guy's a badass. We're saved, guys. No, we got to keep running. Like, why? How?
Let's all watch. That'd be really funny if they just stayed there and his whole ploy was for nothing. You guys were supposed to be running away.
It's like, well, you didn't say anything, buddy.
A little hint. I don't know. Would have been nice.
I noticed that The Force Awakens really regressed Han's character a lot, but a lot of people gave that film a pass because it gave fans something that they really wanted to see. That was Han being a badass again. So, of course, if we saw Luke doing some badass stuff at the end of this movie, rather than just distracting them and not actually being there, then that would have alleviated some of the pain, at least. It would have been kind of satisfying to see.
Yeah, we've seen the movie Crank. There's a scene where there's a where they're in a car chase, and there's like a scene where there's like a car set up to explode. And he gets out of the car to his car to shoot the gas tank. He's walking up to shoot the gas tank. He emptied his gun in the gas tank, and you're thinking that it's going to explode. It doesn't. That's kind of like what happens with Luke. And also, just before that, his girlfriend was giving him a blowjob and quit right before he finished. And then that happened. That car scene happened. So it's kind of like that. There's no payoff. It's the first time we've seen Luke Skywalker come in after all these years, and we want to see what kind of wisdom and powers he's gained over the past almost 4 decades. We don't. We see him walk up and then vanish after being an emo for most of the movie.
It's extremely disappointing, and it's only natural for people to, strongly dislike this movie for it. It's certainly not the biggest problem that I have with it. Again, the issue is he doesn't immediately jump into action after hearing that Han's dead. That was the biggest red flag that, this Luke is not Luke at all. But certainly, the fact that he didn't even get to do anything that was actually like badass.
Well, he didn't do anything
sucks,
heroic. He was not a hero. He just like, we thought he was there, but he wasn't. And it's like, okay, how is he redeeming himself? How is he trying to do something right? I mean, being there and communicating, that's nice. Sure. Saying, hey, Leia, I got your message. I'm still not here, though, because I'm a jerk. And like, oh, thanks, brother. That's really great. It's not what you were expecting. And I don't know why Ryan wanted to have this surprise element where it wasn't such a big reveal that, oh, yeah, no, he's not really there, but he's actually doing something else for us. And everything stops because of that. Okay, fine. You surprised us. But you know what? There's a whole army outside, and you just blew a giant hole in a door. Why don't you have the army take care of all the other small people you were trying to kill? And Kylo and your master can go talk on the side over there. Just have a little chat. Fight, I don't care. But there's a war going on. You don't just stop everything because some guy appeared out of nowhere. It's a very strange, and that whole scene is just bizarre. The whole lead up to it, the whole thing with Rose and Finn dragging Rose kilometers while in a battlefield. Everything is just like, what is going on?
I would have loved for there to have been a shot where like Luke is for force projection. Luke is just standing here, right? And then off to his side, you see like Finn is still dragging Rose along. And he's like about to pass Luke, and Luke's just like looking at him, and it's like, I don't know. It would have been like a very consistent thing with the Last Jedi's humor to just like interrupt the dramatics of the scene with a joke about Finn dragging Rose across the
That would have been
battlefield.
great. And what could have happened was that Luke could have deflected bolts to keep her alive or whatever. It's like make me believe that Finn actually did this task and they somehow survived. Because after that crash, there's nothing on the battlefield. There's nothing there except for Finn dragging her ass back, somehow not getting shot for I don't know, 30 minutes. How long does it take to walk 2 kilometers dragging someone through sand? I don't know.
Salt.
At least it was the Last Jedi Rose Tico, not the Skywalker Rises Rose Tico. Not easier a task.
Oh.
I mean, I would say that this wasn't the final straw for me. The final straw was like, okay, so the reveal that Luke wasn't actually there was like, okay, that's pretty cool. He didn't even have to be there. So he's going to be in episode 9, right? And he's going to be the Luke Skywalker that I knew and loved, and he's going to do some cool shit. Nope, he's dead.
He's just dead.
That was where I said, "Fuck you, Ryan. Fuck you, Last Jedi."
I think people could have accepted that. Yeah, if Luke Skywalker had survived that, like, okay, I sent my projection across the galaxy to buy you some time because I couldn't make it there in time if I went there in person, and then we could see him be awesome in the 3rd movie. But no, he just dies.
Like, I would have been okay with him being the Luke that we knew and loved and doing cool stuff, and then dying at the end of the second of this movie, The Last Jedi.
Too, yeah.
I'd be okay with that, or I'd be okay with, okay, he goes through this arc in The Last Jedi, and then in Rise of Skywalker, he does the cool stuff that we've wanted to see him do for 30 years. But no, they gave us neither. And we don't even get to see him talk to Han. We don't get to see him interact with Leia outside of one scene. He doesn't even seem to care about Han or Leia that much. I hate it. I hate this movie.
What people wanted to see was this. Destructive power is a Sith thing. We always heard the Jedi prizing non-violence.
Yeah, while you show Darth Vader deflecting bolts. Yeah, he's really attacking people there. No.
Well, I mean, he is attacking people here. Like, what were you trying to say there?
Well, no, they're shooting him and he's defending himself. I mean, he's just walking down the thing. They're attacking.
Well, he's entering their ship and he ignites his lightsaber. He's basically saying, "I'm gonna fuck you all up."
Sure, but that's not a display of him being violent. That's him being defensive.
I guess. I would say that the issue with the point here, though, is that Jedi aren't actually they're not pacifists. They will absolutely kill people in self-defense. Yeah. It's like, this isn't just a thing about with Vader. It's like, just because Yoda says that the Jedi only use the Force to defend and never to attack. If you're a Jedi and you see someone is going to try to kill a child, basically, it is okay to use the Force to defend that child by attacking the person trying to kill the child.
And weren't they described as the guardians of the Republic?
Right. They're not soldiers. They're just sort of these keepers of the peace, but they don't actually enforce it.
They will fight, but I mean, they'll probably use other methods first. I mean, it goes back to the Eastern tropes here, where you have the wise monk who respects nonviolence, but if it comes down to it, he'll kill like 50 people with one move.
This is a really big argument in the first KOTOR game, even the second one, where the pacifist philosophy of the Jedi is contradicted by the main character or the main villain, if you want to call it that. And that's one of the main conflicts. That was kind of the inspiration for KOTOR 2, is that you have this fundamental problem with the Jedi philosophy. And then you have these dark Jedi or gray Jedi, whatever you want to call them in that respect, that try to do the right thing, try to do the greater good, even if it involves violence. So that's this kind of subversion that makes the world of Star Wars a bit more interesting, because you have these ethical questions that the Jedi Order does not answer. And that's where you get these schisms and these paradigms that make it more interesting, as opposed to, I don't know how you would characterize The Last Jedi, it's kind of like a stupid version of that, like the poor man's KOTOR, I guess. I don't know how to characterize it, but it's like as if Johnson just forgot how to tell the inverse of a story or the inverse of a philosophy. It said, well, what if we have this scene where you think this is going to happen, but really we just throw it away. And then here's another scene where you think this is going to happen, but it doesn't, and nothing happens. It's just like, why are you doing this? There's no philosophy. There's no meaning that you're giving us. You're just throwing meaning out the door.
Not to mention that Luke was going to, like with his Jedi Order, he was going to try to fix the mistakes that the original Jedi Order had made. He was going to, like the whole thing with, like the Jedi kind of distancing themselves from even having feelings. That wasn't a value of Luke's. Luke found his strength through his feelings, and it's funny that he brings up the idea of like, oh, you just want to see Luke killing a bunch of people, but just destruction is a Sith thing. Well, here's the thing: what does Luke do at the end of the first act of Return of the Jedi? He slaughters a bunch of Jabba's men to save his friends.
That's his last resort. Like he went in there trying to negotiate his way out of there, but he had a plan in place just in case the negotiations didn't go well, and he kills a bunch of people because it was a last resort. Like there's no way. He tries to.
It was justified.
Yeah, it was justified. Exactly. Yeah.
His friends' lives are in peril. If you have a bunch of stormtroopers about to kill Luke Skywalker's friends, I would totally be okay with Luke Skywalker killing all of those stormtroopers to defend his friends.
Right, and if he was some sort of gray Jedi who just did not believe in the Force, then great, he could have these ethical, moral quandaries where he could be more violent or he could be more pacifist, regardless of the situation, whatever he felt like, because he's no longer believing in the Jedi. That's fine, but he's neither of those things. He just doesn't care. He just sits back and goes, I want to die. And you're like, okay.
And I don't care if my friends die. I don't care if my sister dies.
He becomes an emo 13-year-old.
Until Yoda lights a tree on fire. And it's like, oh.
Where the fuck were you all this time, Yoda?
Yoda, what the hell? Like, where have you been?
The story doesn't work.
I could have used some advice. You just been hanging out
30
here.
years ago.
What's going on, Yoda? You could just be a Force ghost this entire time.
Where the fuck is Obi-Wan? I know that they can't really do anything because Alec Guinness is dead, but you still got Ewan McGregor.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Make totally do Ewan McGregor.
Make up some bullshit. Just say, oh yeah, he made himself appear younger as a Force ghost.
I mean, he technically, Obi-Wan just died in the original trilogy, and then maybe over the years, you kind of like, hey, I figured out how to reappear as a Force ghost as my younger, more attractive self.
Hey, they did it with Anakin in Return of the Jedi.
He returned him. He had just died. Well, he was a prodigy, remember? So you can give us black on that one.
No, well, Anakin teaches Obi-Wan how to do it. Like Obi-Wan looks at him and he's like, how did you do that? You surely should look a lot different than you did when I first cut off your legs and other arm. And then Anakin's like, oh yeah, it's this funny thing. Let me teach you this trick. And then you could have a movie of Anakin teaching Obi-Wan to alter his Force Ghost appearance.
Concentrate, just a Force Ghost version 2.
See, I would actually want to see a movie of Luke before he becomes a Force Ghost and all the annoying people that come over all Force Ghosts because he's the only one who can communicate with them, so they all want his attention. It's like, hey Luke, come over here and catch some fish. That's fun. It's like, leave me alone, Yoda. Go away.
I just realized here. So Yoda's a Force Ghost, right? And so Force Ghosts are able to observe basically anything and everything, right? And so my question is, why didn't Yoda tell Luke that Palpatine is still alive after all this time?
I guess it slipped his mind. Hey, by the way, Palpatine.
You would think that he would have access to that knowledge, but he doesn't tell Luke.
That's the one thing I would be all right with him doing. Not Force lightning while as a ghost, but if he told him that Emperor Palpatine was still alive as a ghost, that would be fine.
Yoda, we need some reconnaissance done over that hill. Can you just teleport?
You see how powerful these Force ghosts can be? If you're allied with a Force ghost, you go, okay, we need you to go inside the ship. give us some schematics, and force Yoda to pop over there, check out some stuff, come back and give you the rundown.
Yoda's just a dick.
Light some engines on fire, take out their shields, whatever you feel like. We'll surprise us. We want some, we want to win, but not completely win. We want to get some challenge when we fight the next battle. Yoda, it's like, yeah, okay.
It's my headcanon that Yoda actually knew that Palpatine was alive all along, but all that he did with that information was he would troll him as a Force ghost, just like poking him with his Force ghost stick.
It's like critiquing his works, and so like, he tries to write something down. Mr. Kama, you did.
I could just imagine how obnoxious he could be to Palpatine as a Force ghost.
That's why Palpatine is so stupid. He doesn't do anything aside from Force lightning. That's all he learns. There's no other lessons. He can't practice. He always gets annoyed by Yoda.
He put all of his points in Force lightning. That's all he got.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that got Yoda to fuck off.
Force lightning. That was Yoda's entire plan, because that's what always destroys Palpatine, is his own Force lightning.
Yeah. And then Yoda force downloads Palpatine's Force lightning powers, and that's how he's able to call upon lightning.
Uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
But they were basically soldiers and assassins in the prequels.
Send me to kill the Emperor.
Luke using knowledge instead of violence.
But they're not soldiers and assassins, as Mace Windu said so. So
they're kind of in a war. That's
okay. So he is sent to kill General Grievous, because General Grievous is the commander of the droid army, and if he kills General Grievous, then the Clone Wars will end. And then because General Grievous fights with 4 lightsabers and is going to be very offensive, they need to send the best defensive Jedi to attack him. And the best defensive Jedi is absolutely Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is the master of defense. And so, and then when he's saying that he wants to be sent to kill the Emperor, like, again, they just slaughtered the whole Jedi Order except for 2 Jedi, and then there's like a couple dozen others in expanded universe shit. So, in that situation, yeah, going to kill the Emperor and Darth Vader is completely justified. The whole galaxy is at stake.
Kind of take some extreme actions in that sense. I mean, the Jedi are not so peaceful that they will say, "Oh yeah, we're about to die," but our philosophy says no violence. So,
but they're not assassins either. John Wick is an assassin. John Wick is the type of person that you hire to kill someone. You don't do that with Jedi.
You hire him to kill the boogeyman. Jedi are not accepting contracts or anything like that.
Exactly. Actually, that'd be kind of cool if they have like a... Yeah, I'd watch a movie about a Jedi bounty hunter, Jedi assassin.
It would have to be like, again, some sort of Sith character who broke away from the Sith, but is still, he'd still kill people because it's part of his philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like something like that. It wouldn't be a dark Jedi. It wouldn't be a gray Jedi. It would be literally a Sith who is no longer with a master or just traveling and whatever. That could work.
I could do with a dark Jedi. I think that could, it's not an actual Jedi, but it's a Force sensitive that's using the Force and uses a lightsaber to go around completing contracts, assassinations, or bounties. That would be kind of cool to see. I'd play a video game centered around that. I'd imagine that'd be pretty badass. But yeah, the idea of saying the Jedi were basically assassins in the Clone Wars, that's not how it works.
Yeah, kind of skipping out on some context there.
Yeah.
To win the fight is the most Jedi thing in the series, but it ignited a controversy because it's not in the rulebook.
Okay, that's a very strange comment for the most Jedi thing in this series is for Luke to meditate on a rock and teleport his image to another planet to buy time.
From the very first movie, they established that the Jedi carry lightsabers, indicating that they don't just use knowledge to solve problems. They will resort to violence if need be.
Yeah,
It's an elegant weapon.
It's not never violence. It's violence if necessary.
Right. They don't carry blasters because they don't believe in them. They believe in this elegant weapon that is only needed in certain scenarios. And
I want a Jedi Columbo show. Just go around solving crimes.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
A really annoying Obi-Wan who keeps asking questions.
Yeah. Like, one more thing. I never carry a lightsaber. It's just very distracting.
There's a writer out there that's done both a whodunit and a Star Wars movie. His name's Ryan Johnson. Maybe he could do that.
No.
Actually, you know what? I haven't seen his mystery movie, but if it's any good, any good, if he could make,
I've seen it.
Okay, is it reasonably good? Like Murder Mysteries are a very wide variety. So,
okay, so it's enjoyable. The humor is most of the humor lands. I'd say the acting performances are good.
That's good enough for me. Honestly, what you just said was fine. So
okay, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I'll tell you what, you go see it, and then we can have a discussion about it. I tried having a discussion about it on my podcast, and I had some streaming problems.
Okay,
but I'd be happy to talk about it because there's some tismy stuff with the plot, I think. But
sure. I mean, when you're talking about murder mystery, I'm a big aficionado on Agatha Christie and Poirot and a bunch of others. So if he gets that reasonably good and he throws that into Star Wars or a science fiction world, that's kind of hard to do. But because you're focusing on the mystery, then you'd have to really sell us on the believability and the ability for the audience to deduce what's going on. And if he can just do that, just do that, Ryan, he would make an immeasurably good movie compared to what The Last Jedi was.
I guess just keep Ryan Johnson out of other people's franchises, have him do his own stuff.
I would just warn you though that he does some political jabs in it. It's not so subtle, social commentary and whatnot.
Well, that's better than a Mary Sue, honestly.
Cannibalism is evil.
Cannibalism? I'll take a contemporary political commentary or whatever agenda over a Mary Sue any day. So
Nazis are bad. Whoa, what a very brave.
Wow, bravo, Ryan. Thanks for that.
Well,
that's fantastic.
the thing is that he's got this 15-year-old character in Knives Out who he's like this fucking prep school kid that's always on his phone, and he doesn't have any effect on the plot, but there's a running joke about him being some alt-right Nazi troll, and Ryan Johnson went out in an interview and said that character was inspired by the Last Jedi haters that he saw on Twitter.
Really?
Yes. So there is that. It's really on the nose. But, I mean, I encourage people to go check out the movie, give it a fair shot, and come to their own conclusion about it.
Well, not unless I have to.
Well, I'll probably check it out, yeah.
Ryan Johnson made the mistake of posting an excerpt that referenced the ability, and haters immediately descended on him because it wasn't canon. You fucking moron. I hate to break it to anyone, but one fictional book of fake space facts isn't any more or less real than another fictional book of fake space facts.
Then why did he post it? Why would he bother referencing something which everyone knows is not canon to justify himself? What kind of argument is that? It doesn't exist. But look, I read it in this book. Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Here's proof that it's non-canon. Wait, oops.
What a... I know he did other stupid things on Twitter, but...
Well, he's Ryan Johnson's kind of his brand.
I know. It's like, Ryan, you can't just reference things that don't exist. You can't make an argument off nothing.
I'm pretty sure Ryan Johnson is not a Star Wars fan, even remotely. They gave him the reins because he's not a Star Wars fan.
It's as if Disney's like, well, we got rid of the EU, but we're still going to keep using it when we need it. It's like, what? No, that's not how that works, Disney.
They just want to smash the EU to pieces and just use the pieces they want to use.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's like taking away James Bond. It's like, well, we liked Goldfinger. That was kind of cool, but we didn't like Casino Royale, and Octopussy was stupid and Moonraker. Oh, Moonraker's great. Let's use that. It's like, what? No, we can't just pick and choose. It's either is or isn't canon. That's all there is to it.
All of Sean Connery's canon, everything else is non-canon. We can't really do that.
Timothy Dalton, he's horrible. Yeah.
There was never any real definition of canon.
Yes, there was.
Oh, this part's awesome. This next part's fantastic.
What?
That's why they non-canonized it. That's how they non-canon. How else can you do it if something's already canon or not already?
It wasn't canon, but we went ahead and made it non-canon.
Yeah, thanks. Great.
Anyway,
bravo there, Mr. Norell.
Things shifted in and out of it all the time, and the sheer volume of extraneous books and games led to a convoluted coding system to determine canonicity by ranking. The only person whose opinion should matter on this is the creator of the series, and George Lucas didn't care for much of anything other than the films and the Clone Wars show.
The Emperor doesn't get cloned, Luke doesn't get married, and Jar Jar's the best Star Wars character.
Well,
that's canon. Alright, you son of a bitch. Stop! Go to the dark. Get him off me!
Disney established a committee to ensure that every new storyline is totally canon, and that includes The Last Jedi.
What the heck do you need a committee for when everything's non-canon? What guru do you need to hire? Hey, we get the biggest Star Trek nerd, or Star Wars nerd in our offices. It's like, sure, okay, we just removed everything except the movies from canon. Okay, what do you need me for? Like, it's just like they have a committee for consistency, really.
I guess they did that before they made everything non-canon, because that seems to make the only sense.
That's ridiculous. What do you do? Oh, Rian Johnson wants to do this with the Force. Well, we have nothing to compare it to. Okay, keep going. What else? Oh, okay, we're going to ram a spaceship at light speed. Okay, we have nothing to compare it to. What else? Like, what do you do? What does this committee do? It makes no sense.
Apparently, they're there to approve things and not really ask any questions.
Apparently, like, what were the editors doing of the film? It's like, Ryan, you want a scene where they are chasing through space, but they can't catch up, and they're firing, but it's not doing any damage, and then...
Here, I want a scene where Leia is thrown into space, and she just floats back into the ship. All right, that's canon.
Like, there's so many things that this committee I'd like to ask.
Apparently, being on this committee is like for the relatives or something, because they have a cushy job, they get paid, and all they have to do is just rubber stamp anything that comes across their desk.
Yeah, they would have to be like a technology expert, Force expert, someone who knows the characters, their backstories, and would say, okay, Ryan can and cannot do this. And I guess they just said yes to everything. Like, I don't
said yes to everything. My cousin there, and he got the, hey, your nephew needs a job, and you put him on the committee.
Yeah,
that's kind of that seems to be what they did.
Yeah, he basically was given carte blanche to do whatever the fuck he wanted.
It's just like what is this argument trying to be made here? Everything's canon because we deleted all the books and comics. Like, okay, yeah, you can make that. Again, you can do this. It just has to make sense with what you're doing next. So if it's a bad story and bad setup and bad storytelling for science fiction or technology or Force, people aren't going to buy it. And this has nothing to do with Star Wars. This is just basic storytelling. This is like how you tell a story. Oh, who's Rey? She's a girl from nowhere. Okay. How did she get these powers? Don't know. Second movie. How we get these powers? Don't know. Hey, maybe we should fill in the blanks sometime, huh?
Oh, he's like, on a third
No,
movie
mystery
already?
boxes are a lot more important than answers.
Mystery boxes ruin everything.
I'm okay with a mystery box as long as you actually have an answer for it eventually. But they don't.
It wouldn't be a mystery box then. The whole point of the mystery box is not really have an answer or care about the answer, just to have just to enjoy the mystery.
I guess you're right. A mystery box is actually different from a mystery itself, because a mystery is going to have an answer. A mystery box is just fucking nothing. It's like a MacGuffin. You know, a MacGuffin is actually like it's an undefined object that the story revolves around. That's what a mystery box is.
Well, it's kind of worse. When you're talking
it's a big
about,
fat question.
Yeah, when you're talking about a mystery, let's say in a murder mystery, if you don't reveal who the murderer is, you were led up this crazy garden path with no conclusion, with no goal, and you're sitting there going, so what's the plot? Who killed who? Why did they kill them? We have 5 suspects and there's no answer.
any clues too for a mystery, but the mystery box doesn't really give you that many clues. Isn't that a cool question to ask? That's basically a mystery box.
You have to answer something.
I think that there's certainly I'm trying to think, like, could you do a murder mystery where you actually don't reveal who the murderer is exclusively, but you leave enough clues behind for readers to like, or viewers to piece together?
You would have to have a really, really tight story, but not very complex, because I've read a lot of Agatha Christie's that they're really complex. Like there's several books where she actually lists, right before she's about to go to the last chapter, she lists all of the evidence. And she does it in such a way that if you miss one, you're off the path. So that's that's really I think it was like Murder Under the Sun was one of them. It was so complicated. And I got about halfway through, so I was following pretty well. But after that, I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. So it'd have to be a really small, simple murder and a lot of speculation. So.
You'd have to shift the focus from the target being the murderer, and then it would kind of ruin the whole exercise.
Well, so I have another question then. So like, there's a really great movie that is like one of my favorites called Prisoners. Have you guys ever seen it?
No,
I don't think so.
So it's the one with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. So I won't spoil how it ends, but it ends on an ambiguous note. You know who the perpetrator is, okay? What you don't know for sure is a certain character's fate. There's a character that ends up wounded and thrown down a hole, basically, that the killer dug up, I guess. And there's like it's basically that the hole is sealed and they're hidden away, and there's like, because they catch the killer at the end, they're like sort of investigating the house and trying to find any leads as to where other victims of this killers might have been, like, buried bodies or something. And there's a certain it's not a MacGuffin. It's like it's a there's a setup involving a whistle, okay, and a character that was in that hole earlier in the events of the film apparently left a whistle down there. And then at the end of the movie, you've got like a detective character, like basically the CSIs are going home and it's just the detective character by himself. And then he hears a whistling from the hole. But he doesn't, like, you don't see him notice that's coming from the hole. He just hears a whistling sound and he like winces, and then he just says like, it's probably no big deal. And then he hears it again. What you know about the characters is, at least this detective character, is that he's very persistent, and he's not the kind of person that's going to brush that aside after deciding, okay, no, there's actually something going on here. But then the movie cuts to black, and that's the ending. So you don't actually see him rescue the character that's been shot and buried in this hole. So there's room for speculation as to what actually happens after the movie cuts to black. But I actually do like when a story can leave things up to your imagination, and you get to wonder, like, okay, did that character actually get rescued, or did he not? Like, what's the outcome here? So I'm not against the idea of an unsolved mystery, of a little bit of room to speculate. It just kind of depends on the context, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that with a murder mystery. I'm not really sure if you can do that with murder. I've seen movies and things do that in a certain context, but the murder mystery specifically, I'm not really sure if you can.
No, I don't think that would be. I can tell you right now, anyone who knows murder mysteries or police procedurals or any genre of that type or subgenre would hate that movie, because it would break from the norm. But there are like dramatic ones. I think Memento is kind of like that, where the whole point of the movie is not a murder mystery, although that's kind of the goal. It's how to tell a story in a different way that's sad and pathetic and about this person's condition. So I ended up hating that movie just because of the last scene. But as a movie by itself, 90% of it's great. because you've never experienced a film like this before. So genre breaking is fine, provided you respect what you're doing and why and how. So
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask one more question. I promise we can then continue to the rest of the video. So I'm writing a series of books, and in one of my books, the idea is to have, because it focuses on special victims' crimes, there's going to be a book where they investigate an alleged sexual assault, and they ultimately don't come to a definitive conclusion as to whether the assault actually happened. Because you know how it is in real life, like a lot of cases is like, you could have assaults that happen that there's just not enough evidence for, or it could be someone got falsely accused, and it's kind of up to speculation as to what actually happened. And innocent until proven guilty is, of course, the preferred standard or principle when it comes to those sorts of things. But I also think that it's it's interesting to sort of play upon people's doubts on that kind of thing. And that's not a thing that I would be doing with all of my books. It's just like an idea. Like there's just some cases that you just cannot solve. If you're talking about like a standalone story that's a murder mystery, then it can certainly be pointless. But maybe in the context of like a TV show, you could have the occasional episode where it's a dead end case, and maybe it gets resolved later. You know, you have those sorts of stories all the time in real life where they don't find, like, they never found the Zodiac killer. They never found Jack the Ripper. You know what I mean?
I think I've seen things like happen that way. I think Mr. Holmes kind of has something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something he can't solve.
Yeah, I do remember. I think it was Criminal Intent with who was that guy from Full Metal Jacket? The
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio. There we go. There was an episode where one of the women, one of the criminals, gets away, and that's fine. You could have scenes where the criminal wins. That's great, so long as we go on the journey with the detective. And I don't mean a hero's journey. I don't mean a character-driven narrative. I mean an actual journey of finding evidence and deduction. So
sure,
what you do with that is up to you. But so long as you give something to the audience to say, oh, this is a police procedural, this is a whodunit, this is a locked room, whatever. And, Poirot is there, and boom, the guy jumps out the window. It's like, whoa, So Poirot is still Poirot. He did his job. He won the day, but the criminal escaped, or whatever happened with his sentence, or he killed himself before he got to the chopping block. Whatever the case, yeah, it can go crazy, but you have to maintain that you give the audience what they are expecting out of a murder mystery, because if you turn it into a drama at the last minute, you're going to piss a lot of people off. So
sure, it should be well developed that it's actually a drama and less so of a mystery.
Yeah, the problems with plot progression in a murder mystery are very different from the characterization you would in a hero's journey, because you don't need to identify with the master sleuth. You don't need to identify with the murderer. You don't need to identify with all these characters. That adds to it. Sure, if you want to do that, go ahead, but that's not the main component of that style of story. So
that's encouraging to me, because the point behind my idea of like a sexual assault case that doesn't lead to a definitive conclusion is it's actually more about the two detectives having a disagreement over how they're handling the case. Like one of them is a lot more inclined to say, no, you're guilty, and then the other person's like, no, the accuser's lying.
Yeah.
And both of them have it's like this clash of ideas that's very relevant to today's discussion about sexual assault. And I don't mean to be all political or anything, but my books are have a lot of social commentary built into them, because they're focusing on issues of like human trafficking and rape and shit. And I think that's an interesting discussion to be had that can be explored. It's certainly less so about the case, although there's still some interesting stuff like they're having to be brought into a jurisdiction, like they're basically investigating a campus assault, and they're not campus police. They're like being brought in because the campus police have like botched the investigation already. So there's like 100 different complications that they're dealing with on top of the clash between these two characters investigating it.
Yeah, I think that's a great discussion we could have for another private time. We could talk about all sorts of blots and how to tell. I think it's great. I'm glad we got a little bit of information because I love that genre or subgenres they're in. So I think even LiteratureDevil would have a lot of insight. He's big on the pulps. So
yeah. Well, it's great. It's great to understand, like, how can a mystery box be executed well? I suppose because the sequel trilogy definitely doesn't do that, or Lost, or basically anything that's done by JJ.
Yeah, once the lens flares and explosions of the new Star Trek movie franchise came about, I was like, okay, that's enough. That's enough for me. I think we're done here. So.
Yeah.
Anywho, we have quite a lot more time to go.
We have a video, yeah. Sorry, folks.
So yes, everything in the film is totally canon. And if you take issue with that, why is this bureaucratic system any less legitimate than what came before? If you need a committee to rubber stamp your fantasy adventure plot points for your consumption, maybe you're the one who doesn't understand what the Force is about.
No,
wait a minute. Okay, did he just say we're watching movies wrong?
So, here's the thing. I reject the Disney trilogy as canon.
So
but the thing is, it's still officially canon by the people that own the intellectual property. It's like I can engage in discussions with people that are like-minded. However, because it's officially canon, I have to treat it as such when I'm talking to someone that likes the sequel trilogy. And so if it were decanonized, I could just officially go, well, I don't care. Word of God says it's no longer canon.
Yeah, it's like any other thing that is produced by a company you might have liked in the past. Like, I don't know, the next Ferrari comes out, or the next Lamborghini looks like the Batmobile, and you're like, what the hell is this thing?
I mean, the episode Threshold from Voyager is notoriously deemed non-canon. It's actually part of the series. It's legitimately produced, but it's Word of God says it is non-canon. I mean, even the people who created the show kind of treat that episode as non-canon, like it never ever happened. But it's still in there. It's still in there.
Even though I happily resort to headcanon when it comes to my personal enjoyment of the Disney trilogy, there is still objective canon. Canon's not subjective. If canon were subjective, then it's like, so my dad, he hated the prequel trilogy, and he disregarded that as canon for him. But I accept the prequel trilogy as canon. So it's like if you say that, oh, canon is subject to the person perceiving the movies, then it's like, well, you fucking have a million different kinds of canon. I think it's best to just like, yeah, objectively the canon is that the sequel trilogy happened, as much as I hate it.
Yeah, it's like the definitions in secondary sources, like when you get a comic book or even tertiary sources where they give definitions of, well, what really happened in The Force or in The Last Jedi with the bombs is there's a magnetic beam shooting from each bomb, and it's like this ridiculous explanation that makes absolutely no sense. And you're sitting there going, oh, okay, this would have been great. Actually, no, it would have been bad if it was in the movie because the explanation is so stupid. But it's stuff that they have to do patchwork with just because they own the rights. So that's when you know you have bad material or bad storytelling, when you have to rely on bridging material like comic books or tertiary material like Wikipedia articles on the StarWars.com site. So yeah, that's what we've got to work with nowadays with Star Wars.
This is a big convoluted mess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the canon is contradicting itself, and that's what people are having a difficult time abiding.
Yeah, so it's not just all force powers and spaceships. It's just continuity, really.
Think about it. Fans hated the midichlorians because it made the Force into something small and knowable.
Yeah, they broke lore. That's bad.
Yeah, even if it was George Lucas who came up with it, the purpose of the Force was to enforce mysticism. Midichlorians was his attempt to make it more like Star Trek, make it more hard sci-fi. I think he was supposed to he was thinking that it would give him more legitimacy or something like that. But people hated it because that's not what the Force is. It's not Star Wars. The Force is mysticism. It's ambiguity. It's that spiritual sense, and bringing it into like a medical terms or scientific terms kind of destroys and distorts that.
Well, the idea that I think behind midichlorians was just so that there was a way to define like an objective power scale.
His power level.
Yeah, over 9. Exactly. That's basically what it was. Is the Star Wars version of that, and it's it's sloppily executed, of course. And I'd say that because the Force was supposed to be more mystical, it's like you can't quantifiably prove the existence of a soul, okay? Which is what a lot of religions rely on. A lot of religions rely on the existence of souls in order to function, basically. But you can't prove or disprove that a soul is real. You just have to resort to like the burden of proof. Like, well, it's you're the one making the claim that souls are a thing. So in comes Phantom Menace, and it basically does the equivalent of saying, no, souls are like something that you can scientifically measure now.
Which they could have done with mysticism as well. Like, we have this device which detects the rating power of this, and we don't know how it works or we don't explain it, but here it is. And this kid can touch it, and boom, his power levels, whatever, right? Or whatever. You can do all sorts of things. But because they explained it as this thing, which is like mitochondria, but not, and in all living things, but not really, except for rocks, because rocks aren't organic, but everyone has it. This kid just has a lot of it. You're like, oh, all right.
It kind of ruined the fact that, like, the idea that if you train more, you can become stronger. Now there's people that are just objectively better than you, and there's nothing really you can really do about it.
Their natural talent is already through the roof, and the best you can do is maybe run a bit faster or move the extra rock. This kid, give him like 2 weeks or whatever, 2 years, whatever the actual limit is, and he's lifting X-Wing.
Prequels are pretty terrible. Prequels are pretty awful, but I mean, it's really good. The only thing the sequels did in a positive light was to make the prequels look so much better in comparison.
Yeah, it's a weird way of putting it. It's kind of like,
still pretty bad.
This is crap, but compared to that other crap, it's actually decent crap. It's
kind of like the regular poop.
Yeah, I know. It's this joke that we have with Italian beer. And of all the shit there is, this is the best. And it's Peroni. Like, there's other beer out there with like Moretti and whatever. And it's like, yeah, this is probably the best. I've tried them all. They're all crap. But I'd rather drink the worst crap or the best crap there is. So, yep, that's kind of what we got now. The prequels.
If you've condensed the Force into a book that could be sold by Kenner, haven't you done the same thing?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's a whole bunch of manuals that came out for Star Trek the technical manual in the 90s, and then there was the episode guide as well. That's just because Star Trek is hard sci-fi or hard science fiction. So there's nothing stopping a fan just compiling all the data that they learned and showing.
Yeah, there's rules to the Force. You can write it down. Yeah. It's there. It's just you can't. There's a reason why we can't accept you just doing anything with the Force. And having it pass. It hasn't fallen within this set parameter. It's still a little ambiguous. It's not rigid parameters,
right.
But there are parameters.
So it allows writers who write novellas or any sorts of books or series to do whatever they want to a degree. They can't just start, teleporting stuff in with the Force or shifting through steel or whatever crazy ideas. But what can you do with telekinesis? All kinds of things. What can you do? What can you manipulate on the cellular level? What can you manipulate on the atomic level? That sort of idea. So that was seen in Star Trek, all sorts of science fiction stuff like that. So all kinds of fun stuff you can do, giving freedom to the writer without breaking the movies. All this stuff is possible. But they don't exist anymore, so it doesn't really matter.
Here's another thing you can't do anymore. Pretend for a second that you're seeing Darth Vader for the very first time. What is he? Is he even human? We find out that he used to be a Jedi before turning evil. Okay, how did he get in the suit?
Oh, I cut his arms and legs off and left him to die in a river of lava. Not mentioning that would have been strange.
We find out in the
Okay, there's nothing wrong with having mystery or not having mystery, okay? You don't need mystery to tell a story. I would prefer it, but again, there's lots of writers who don't, like Kurt Vonnegut. He hates mystery. He gets straight to the point. If he has a great idea, that's his next paragraph. He just writes it down. It's like, oh, this guy was an adulterer. What? Wow. Like, it's pretty shocking because he doesn't care about setup. He just gives you the payoff. So does it would the story have changed drastically? At least dramatically it would. If Obi-Wan started talking about Luke's father as Darth Vader, that would have been, whoa.
Yeah.
But it still would have been the same story.
It kind of expands on it. And the mystery is not... Okay, the mystery box isn't that a really cool question? Yeah. Can you expand on it? No. This is more like, look at Darth Vader. This is, what an interesting guy. Look at all this mystery. He just oozes out with his very appearance. Then we have the fact that he subscribed to the Force. In the very first movie, they say that's an ancient religion. And then we have a connection with Luke Skywalker immediately. When Obi-Wan turns out to be a practitioner of the same exact religion, and it turns out that Luke Skywalker's father was also a practitioner of the same exact religion, and we get to learn about something called the Jedi Knight, and we get to see that they have a weapon, and there's a connection established that these things called Jedi are very powerful or very skilled warriors, and that Darth Vader is likely one. So it's not just a question that's just being tossed in that we don't really explore. It's a question that it's a mystery that has clues and connections to our hero and to the main characters. So we're not railing against mystery,
yeah.
Railing against the mystery box.
It's a strange argument to say you can't have mystery anymore because the lore needs to be ironclad and you can't add to it. No one's saying that. That's kind of bizarre. We don't need to have mystery in a science fiction story in the basic elements of storytelling where you don't know what's going to happen next or what's around that corner or who's he related to. No, you have a science fiction. You have this spaceship that works a certain way. It doesn't start teleporting through planets, okay? That's not how it was designed to do. Like, you don't just start inventing shit because you can. You do things for a reason. And
also, again, that's the very first movie. We're establishing the foundation, establishing the ground and the parameters. There's no already established parameters, and then you're breaking it like you do in the latest movies. In that scene where we're first watching Darth Vader come onto the stage, we are in the middle of creating and setting up Star Wars as a franchise and its rules.
And the reveal of him being Luke's father...
Yeah.
That is totally believable. And yeah, the setup from Obi-Wan was completely ambiguous. It could have been anyone. It happened to be his dad. Oh, okay, sure.
Next film that he's Luke's father, which tells us more about Luke than it does about Vader. We already...
Okay, yeah, I guess. Yeah, his scenario of growing up, yep, okay.
Knew that he was a good Jedi at one point. He's still such a mystery at the end of the trilogy that just seeing his face felt like a giant revelation. We didn't really need details on Vader for the story that was being told, and the mystery of what happened to him was a major component of his character. It inspired people to continue wondering about him long after the films were over. When the prequels explicitly showed how he turned, a lot of people were disappointed that it didn't live up to their imaginations. And that's a lesson that Star Wars fans can't seem to learn, because after decades of getting books, comics, video games, and I assume Pez dispensers with plot points etched into the Pez, it's taken for granted that we'll get to know every last detail.
Okay, that's not a problem. No one's asking for every last detail. It's the fact that the prequel movies weren't very good. And they could have told a great story of a little boy becoming Darth Vader, but it kind of screwed up. Especially the first two.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially the first one. That's that was ridiculous.
The third movie was passable, but the build up to it, and even when you hear the you're breaking my heart, like all this melodrama is like, oh
yeah,
God.
Lucas was heavy on the melodrama. Just crank it down a little bit, Lucas.
Yeah, I know that melodrama is a component of the genre, but it's like, can you give maybe the most evil, powerful dude in the galaxy some level of non-saccharin colored flavored crap to swallow? Just have him like actually have a reasonable plot. That why he turned evil was, I'm going to become the most powerful. Only my power can save you. It's like, what? Are you stupid? Or are you just gullible? Like what's going on here? So for the setup that we were given, just didn't work. And for that to be believable, he has to be an adult. He has to be mature. He has to make adult mistakes. He doesn't. Oh, I fell in love, and then I had a kid, and then I want to live forever, and then I want to save my wife. It's like, okay, can you stop being a moron for 2 minutes? That's all we wanted, was an intelligent, mature bad guy, and how he became intelligent and mature, and why. Not, apparently you killed your wife far away when she was giving birth. Because the Force.
We got everything we needed for Darth Vader. It's like, okay, why is he evil? Because he was seduced by the dark side. That's all we needed. We didn't need an elaborate backstory, but the mystery was solved. The mystery, as much as we needed, was solved.
We talked about this a lot because we've come to the conclusion that George is a great movie maker, but not a good writer. And
he's an idea guy.
Yeah, he's an idea guy, and his editor is the one who saves the original, or at least the first movie, and allowed him to make 2 more. So when he has free reign to do whatever he wants after he makes billions of bucks, still you need that old process back, George. Call your old friends, call your ex-wife, call the editors of the first movie to beat you down to size. Say, George, these ideas suck. Give me 2 months, we'll fix them for you. And that would have probably saved a lot of headache and bizarre, cliched lines of dialogue that should never have existed in the first place. You don't even need an editor for that. You just need a guy to read that and go, yeah, George, these lines suck.
Anybody. Get some kid off the street.
I mean, Harrison Ford himself said it. He was like, you can write this shit, George, but you sure can't say it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the writing skill of George is not the best. Even in his original THX movie, which was interesting to say the least. But
he's pretty good with plotting and like ideas and shit. But when it comes to dialogue itself, like, well, no.
Keep away from the dialogue. I want to see a partnership between George Lucas and Quentin Tarantino. That might be interesting.
Wow, that'd be weird. That'd be so weird. There'd be like 20 minutes of Yoda and Luke fishing.
Star Wars pop culture. Like, Yoda was talking about the latest Imperial hit or something.
Oh,
the latest Cantina song. I don't know.
Yeah.
Royale with cheese.
It's great that fans love this universe so much, but the fixation on literal detail suffocates the larger mythology that Star Wars is a vehicle for.
No, not really.
You don't need literal details. The sequels gave us nothing. They just put in things and just want us to accept it. Okay, we needed to. I made a whole video on why Snoke needed the backstory, but the Emperor Palpatine didn't really, because we got all the answers we needed from Palpatine in the original trilogy. He was the bad guy. That was it. That's all we needed to know.
Yeah, but once you establish, it's like coming into a fantasy story and saying, hey, here's a kingdom. Oh, but it was overthrown 100 years ago. It's like, well, why? Well, that's not really important, is it? Well, not really, no. But if it gets overthrown tomorrow, you might want to know why there's this war going on. You might want to know what happened between yesterday and today. That's kind of the setting. You gotta know that.
Yeah, we need to know. Sometimes if you introduce something, we need to know more specific. Especially if you have a guy like Snoke, who looks like that. He's like 20 feet tall and looks like a weird corpse thing.
Yeah.
And now he's in control of for the First Order. How did that happen? What is the First Order? How do you be in control of it? What's the purpose?
Because everyone knows the other movies. They've watched them. Oh, well, there's a big time gap between here and there. Where was Snoke in all this?
What was he doing? Where was he doing? I mean, was he when the Emperor was around?
Yeah, was he his right-hand man? Like, exactly. What was going on? Like, where did he come? How did he get so strong? How do you amass a fleet under the Republic's nose? Where was the Republic all this time? All these questions start popping up. It's not that they couldn't have answered these. They didn't even think about it. Or JJ didn't even care.
I don't think he cared. And this is opposed to Luke Skywalker goes out to fight the Empire, and at the end, he fights the Emperor. That's all we need to know. Okay, the Empire probably has an Emperor.
Yeah, that's
it.
There he is. He's over there. Okay.
And there he is. Okay, that's all we need to know. Thanks. We can continue on with the story now.
We're about to be joined by Evan Monroe.
Oh, hey, Evan.
Well, I'll be right back real quick. I just want to get something to drink.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how long we're going to be because we've been going on for a few.
You know what? I need to get something to drink too. Evan, make yourself known to Smudboy. Smudboy, Evan Monroe here is my co-host on my podcast, and he was actually featured positively on EFAP. I sent his video to Mahler. He made a 15-minute long video essay called "Art is Not Subjective," and EFAP watched it with like minimal pauses just so that people could see it, and it's great. So give me 1 sec.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for coming on there, Even. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, I think SouthPaw has been great. And I did watch, I think, the first hour, part 1 of the conversation you guys had. I can't remember the lady's name who was critiquing Mahler.
Guchin. Yeah. That was an interesting stream.
Yeah, I got up to the first half hour of the second video, and I liked the conversation. I'm also big on talking about quality in art and objectivity, and you guys did a decent job. I would have criticized Theo a bit more, but other than that, fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. It was interesting having different people on who had different perspectives on objectivity, because like it's so funny. There's a lot of people like that who say that like everyone who sides with objectivity just agrees with each other, and it's not true. There's a lot of different like layers to objectivity. Different people agree with different things, and it's like it's okay. You can have a different discussion. So
yeah, and it's
not saying that objectivity is subjective.
Well, everyone agrees that coming up with a standard is subjective, but that's not the point of objectivity. It's once you have like a chair, you observe it for its objective properties because it's an object, and you then talk about the subject, the person doing the observations, why his observations are objective or not, and then you have a standard. It's like, okay, well, this is now a pure objective standard. You can use it for whatever you like. But we're not going to talk about objectivity because that's going to be a whole other discussion.
Of course.
Yep. Best to leave that be.
Keep on going with...
Evan, you're going to need the Watch Together link.
Oh, did you get the link there? Let's see if I can find it.
Oh, yeah. Is that up in the chat?
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
All right.
I saw a little bit of this video, and in all honesty, so many people were saying it's one of the better defenses of The Last Jedi. I'm like, he pulls out all the classic argumentations. There's whataboutisms, and it's just like it's the same story. Like all these defenses, people don't have nuance. Have you seen the video The Last Jedi, Why I Love It? I think that's what it's called.
Nope.
The guy made a Pirates of the Caribbean video. I haven't seen all of it, but he actually starts off decently, and it really is just explaining why he personally loves it, and he explains that there are flaws. He's like, yeah, the world building is not very strong, but it's interesting because it's like, he accepts that certain flaws, and there's other stuff which is like, still, that stuff is just fine for me. And I'm like, dude, that's good for you, but when you try just straw manning arguments and making whataboutism claims on the previous films, it's not a strong position to hold. So,
well, that's all that The Last Jedi defenders have is by you can't elevate The Last Jedi to the quality of the original trilogy, so you have to drag the original trilogy's quality down to The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's really, they're doing the same exact thing to Luke Skywalker. They're trying to drag him down, destroy him, so that Rey can look better in comparison.
Right, Luke is a Mary Sue, and I'm like, dude, could you imagine Rey in Cloud City getting her hand cut off and being overpowered by Vader? That would never happen.
She would like broken Vader's neck with her bare hands, and
there's no way.
Guys, do you remember that time in A New Hope when Luke Skywalker fought off all those Tusken Raiders by himself? Do you remember that time in A New Hope when he immediately fought Darth Vader after Darth Vader killed Ben Kenobi and beat him in their first fight?
Nope.
You remember that time that he mind tricked a guy without having to even wave his...
Luke screws up all the time.
Mind trick James Bond.
You remember that time that he was able to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp on his first try? How much heavier do you think those rocks are than an X-Wing? The rocks that Rey lifts at the end of The Last Jedi.
What, the 30,000 boulders?
Yeah. How
she isn't distracted when like Finn comes out and there's this like happy moment. She just like sets them down perfectly. Like I remember watching that for the first time and like thinking like, is she gonna screw up? Is like she gonna like drop the rocks accidentally? But she didn't. She just sets them down.
I thought Finn would have been scared. He would be like, "Oh my god, what is going on?" No, he just runs at her.
I would have loved it if she like dropped the rocks and they actually fell on everyone. It would be like literally a rocks fall, everyone dies ending.
Oh man,
how's that for a subversion of expectations?
No, that wouldn't subvert. That'd be the message of the story, because failure is your greatest teacher. So
yeah, she'd learn at the very end that she should have tried setting the rocks down more carefully. The thing that bothers me about that scene is honestly, it's more the fact that she just does it so casually.
Yeah.
Yoda has to focus all his energy into like lifting much lighter objects than that. But no, she can just casually lift a fucking 1,000 boulders like she's Mundane Matt.
And then bring everyone back in her pickup truck, because it's climbing a mountain is no big deal, especially when you're broken and bruised, and all the people that were injured. Just lift them up in the Millennium Falcon, 2-3 stories up in the air. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
off like a solid cliff. Like I love that edit where she's just down in the canyon. All of a sudden, like you have the foxes that are like climbing. It's like, how the hell did she get down there?
No. What she did was she used the Force, and then she just like lifted everyone up to the Falcon one at a time.
Like Rose, who's unconscious. It's like, yeah, she just did that.
I literally could picture that exact thing happening.
And then she like force flew her way up after she finished, throwing everyone up there.
Oh.
So right now we're talking about Snoke, I think. Can't remember.
Yep.
All right.
I think so.
Let's see.
For example, when Snoke appeared in The Force Awakens without a backstory, fans rioted and caused $15 million in damages at the premiere. What about the...
I think we just covered this. So.
No!
I think Snoke needs a backstory. Emperor Palpatine, not so much. I mean, not a more detailed backstory. Emperor Palpatine is the emperor of the evil empire that Luke has been fighting. That's
the
it.
Emperor is mentioned in the first movie.
Yeah.
In the second movie, he shows up on screen via hologram. We know that the Emperor exists, and you know what? The galaxy is under his control.
The film.
So
the Emperor is important within the story. To be Emperor trying to assume the same role. We've seen enough people.
So if you have a galactic empire, it follows that there's going to be someone at the top called an emperor. That's really all that we need to know. And then the fact that they he's in control of Vader, that's fine. However, with Snoke, this is in a trilogy that's set 30 years after Return of the Jedi, where the galaxy was in the control of the heroes, and now suddenly it's just switched back. Like, this argument only works if the original trilogy didn't exist and the sequel trilogy were like the actual original
right.
trilogy.
It's not a problem of the character, it's a problem of the setting. And he represents this whole shift that either the setting doesn't care about, because the Republic should be in control. So was he in hiding? Was the First Order in hiding all this time, building up power? Wow, what a great story.
killing
Where is that
thousands
story?
of children, like, and making them into stormtroopers. It's like, how the hell did they do that under the nose of the Republic?
Well, they actually do finally answer this in Rise of Skywalker, Spud Boy. There's
they
actually
took a planet and turned it into a Death Star. A planet.
well, according to a video game that takes place between episodes 3 and 4, the Empire was already working on making that into Starkiller Base.
No way.
Yes.
How come they didn't know about it? That's even worse. Why didn't they know about it?
Apparently, like after they beat the Empire, they didn't bother like looking up their archives or anything, collecting intelligence.
Is the Republic just created? It's already filled with bloated bureaucrats, and they're just exploiting things for cash, and they don't actually do their jobs, and you can just get away with building a Star Killer base with no trouble whatsoever.
Well, look at what the First Order does to the Resistance base in The Last Jedi. They just blow it up. They don't bother like sending a team down there to like, okay, look, they were in a rush to get out of here. Maybe we can get some intelligence here. You know, maybe there's stuff that they left behind that could show us where they're going or give us clues about their contacts, where they get their resources from. No, they don't do that. They just blow it all up.
These movies are terrible.
They are.
I didn't know that.
It's so funny. Like, the scapegoat is now the Rise of Skywalker. People are turning on that. Like, pretty much everyone unanimously agrees that the film is bad, but there are still people who are standing by The Last Jedi.
I think they're protecting The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi is what they want. They want a movie that gives a big middle finger to fans, as opposed to The Rise of Skywalker, I've heard, gives a little deference to fans.
It's a bit strange when you look at the actual ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Not to say that that's the be-all, end-all of ratings, but they seem to be enjoying, at least the fans are enjoying.
I don't get that. I'm like, I've not met a single person who liked the movie. I don't understand that. It's like, what I've been getting is that most people are disliking it. I'm like, who are those people? Are they just the casual viewers?
They have to be the laymen. They have to be the casual viewers who don't know any better and just want to watch a movie and not think about it and go, hey, it reminds me of, when this happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
I only wish that I actually, was critical of The Force Awakens when it first came out. The only thing I really criticized The Force Awakens for was just the fact that Rey was a Mary Sue. I've been on the Rey was a Mary Sue train from the beginning, so I'm proud to at least have that. But I didn't actually hate the sequel trilogy until I saw The Last Jedi, and I at least have that. I am happy to say that because of The Last Jedi, I've spent the last 2 years assured that Episode 9 was going to suck, and it's finally come, and what I saw coming has come to pass, and I was right.
I swear, when I saw The Force Awakens, the reason that I held out hope was because I thought that the next films might be able to solve some of the issues. Like, they might be able to present weaknesses or explain backstories in certain characters, or like explain some more of the politics. So I was like, The Force Awakens felt like just a Kickstarter film. So I was like, maybe they'll fix this later on, but they didn't. And it was like, now we have the entire trilogy, and there are definitive statements you can make about characters, especially Rey and her being a Mary Sue. That's definitive now.
And The Last Jedi left the trilogy in such a state that, J.J. Abrams had to reach into his gaping, bottomless asshole to come up with like a trillion different like fetch quests and characters and resources out of thin air. And then he didn't even have time to like develop any of them. So then what you have left is a movie where there's too much shit happening. There's not enough development for any of it, and you get a very rushed plot. Like the pacing, Spud Boy, it's so bad that it makes The Amazing Spider-Man 2 seem like a coherent and well-paced movie. It's insane.
Well, the pacing in The Last Jedi was a slow-motion car chase in space. So that was pretty brutal. And
It was boring, but I'm telling you, the pacing in The Last Jedi is better than Rise of Skywalker.
Because The Rise of Skywalker is just all over the place. Like, the editing is insanity. That was the first thing that I thought when I came out. I'm like, that film is like Suicide Squad for just being utterly incoherent and moving all over the place with like, it moves so fast you can't even process.
By the guy who did Suicide Squad?
Batman v Superman.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, not too far off.
I mean, honestly, it overwhelms you with stupidity a lot harder than The Last Jedi does, and there's more of it. So what ends up happening is your brain just turns into sludge. Like you can just feel it sloshing around within your skull, like within the end of the first hour.
I'm still under the impression that The Last Jedi probably can't be undone by being the worst in the trilogy, or maybe the whole series. But some fans are saying, no. Episode 9 is really bad.
It's pretty bad. I'm not sure. What I've been saying is I think that for like filmmaking quality, for like the editing and the direction and like how just how insane the story is, I think it's probably worse made. But I'm not sure which one is worse written. It's tough because like they're both bad in different ways, so it's hard to decide.
Well, let's not get into discussions about the episode 9. We have to eventually. I don't think we're going to finish this evening, so we might have to do this tomorrow or maybe later on. So yeah, we want to be up all night. That's kind of crazy. I'm not like the EFAP crew who could just do it all day.
This can be a part 1.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get disfigured in their pursuit of power that JJ must have figured we were smart enough to figure this out without having to see it again. Like the Emperor, Snoke is only important to us as an extension of another character, Kylo Ren. Kylo's story seems to be one of the Force balancing itself. The Jedi didn't really understand.
Okay, no.
This is the that one argument that one guy did was his what's his name? He did that weird infamous podcast.
Not Major Lee.
No, I think we covered him one time. He was the guy who said that the Force balances itself, and it doesn't really matter.
Oh, that was Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. It's just the Freddie Prinze Jr. argument.
So my answer to this is everything that happens in the sequel trilogy happens because of Snoke. Therefore, we need to know Snoke's backstory. Snoke is the one that turned Kylo Ren to the dark side. He is the one that destroyed the New Republic. He is the one that destroyed the relationship between Han and Leia, and then Han, Leia, and Luke, basically. Everything that's happening in the sequel trilogy is because of this new character that J.J. Abrams pulled out of his bottomless asshole.
You think you should tell us a little bit about him?
We need to know at least a little bit about him. It's not like it's not like all of this is coming from thin air, because if this was an original story, if this was actually the original Star Wars trilogy, not a sequel Star Wars trilogy, if these were the first Star Wars movies ever being made, then yeah, we don't really give a shit about what came before The Force Awakens. We don't really give a shit about Han, Luke, or Leia. We don't need to know why things are the way that they are now. But when you have the context for the original trilogy, yeah, you kind of do.
I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
Understand how it worked and thought that balance meant killing all the bad guys.
Is he not to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force?
So the prophecy says.
A prophecy that misread could have been.
But a lot of quotes from Lucas imply it to be more of a literal balance, requiring both sides to some extent.
I really don't care about the intention of the creator, and this is where George Lucas really sucks as a storyteller. He's always been ambiguous with what the balance is, what the Force wants. And that's fine. If you want to create that element in your story, go right ahead. But now we have a critic who's saying, oh, this because George said so, this is what it means. And that's not how storytelling works. You are given a story, it is rendered on the screen, that's that. You don't start interpreting what a writer or director meant, okay? You should be able to judge it for what it's worth. And
I was under the impression that the dark side was supposed to be like a cancer on the Force, like an aberration.
Possibly, but he's treating it as if, oh, well, you got like 50 light side guys over here, you got 2 billion dark side guys over here. What that means in the balance of the Force is a lot of dead dark guys. It's like, no. There's no statement, there's no revelation, there's no prophecy saying this is what was going to happen. None of it. There's nothing like that in the entire movie trilogy, or the entire movie series. So
didn't they say in the prequels that the Sith had been extinct for millennia? Like,
yes,
I'm pretty. Yeah. So like, and this is the whole thing. There were hundreds of Jedi in the prequels. Like, where were their balances?
Yeah, and if you go through the KOTOR, which of course is not canon, there is a hidden Sith Empire that's even older than the one that we were aware of in normal space or whatever, Beyond the Rim, whatever they call that. and Revan has to go out there to go stop them, and that's where we get the Old Republic in the MMO, where you have this emperor who's keeps being reborn, and it's just this ridiculous. Well, I'm not saying ridiculous, but it's just this whole other story. So there's way more Sith out there, and that has nothing to do with balance. That has nothing to do with the prophecy. So obviously they have to get rid of that, even though it's probably one of the more cogent narratives, at least for Star Wars. The most beloved one, I would say, KOTOR 1 and 2. So it came from that. So they have to get rid of that because they can't. Oh, the Force or the balance. Gotta clean that one up. So yeah, the idea of a lot of dead Sith or a lot of dead Jedi does not make any sense.
This movie makes that clearer than ever. The ancient Jedi even kept some sort of dark side crystal beneath their island for that purpose.
What purpose is that again? What is he talking
Again,
about?
they invented that. Like this movie made that up.
Yeah,
That's not established.
This is now the birthplace of the Jedi, and they happen to have an anus that has a well, that has a mirror, and the mirror is a dark side mirror, and that's bad. And they kept it, and it's like, okay, your point is,
Yeah.
a
lot of this seems to be a lot of things in these movies seem to be okay. This is important. Why is it important? Doesn't matter. We're telling it's important. Feel like it's important and give it all the emotional deference it deserves. Writing doesn't work that way. It needs to be. We need to know why it's important.
I remember playing KOTOR. The first you arrive on was it Karabot? No, I think it was the Jedi Temple, and just 2 kilometers that way, there's a dark side energy source. It's like because it's in nature. The light and the dark exist in nature. It's part of the universe. So why would the Jedi have a dark force power at the base of this mountain they're on? It's like that's how the universe is. They didn't build it. It's like, oh, we got to have some dark side, we got some light side. I don't know. Maybe
fits the feng shui a little bit.
Yeah, who knows? There's no rationale for it. That's the way the world works. There's no deep meaning behind it. There's no like reason. Ryan Johnson put it in there. He put it in there because they needed Daisy really to do something. Because what's his name wouldn't do. Because Luke was just sitting on his ass all day. She had to be challenged by something. It could be a giant waterfall hole in the ground where she sees herself and nothing gets resolved. It's like, thanks.
Giant dark side anus.
Anus, yeah.
This anus represents where all of the plot comes from.
It literally does. That's where the plot goes.
It just like
that's where it all comes from.
The writers just pull everything out of their asses.
And Darkseid is calling to Rey from that place, and that's where she goes. It's apparently a birth canal / metaphorical womb. So
don't bring up Witten Folly, please don't. That is, guys, we have like 2 or 3 videos on that in my channel. It is the most bizarre interpretation of The Last Jedi I've ever heard.
She pumps out gold.
And we've heard at least 2. I think we've got about a dozen, maybe 18 we've gone over. And this is like feminism, but not feminism. And then it's like sexual.
It sounds like a left-wing version of Black Pilled.
It's terrible. It's funny. It's hilarious stuff. You should watch Witten Folly.
It is. And then she started arguing on Twitter, and it's like, oh dear, just stop.
Wait,
stop talking.
So wait,
she's heavy on the Raylo. Like all of her stuff always boils down to Raylo.
It's all
and this is a social justice warrior we're talking about here, right?
She is
probably.
Okay.
Is it? She's at least a feminist.
Yeah.
Okay.
She has to be. Yeah. There's no other explanation.
I mean, that doesn't necessitate that you're a social justice warrior, but I will. Okay, that it's some bizarre feminist lens that's being applied to.
I don't think she's that crazy, but it's pretty. It's
essentially headcanon the same way this person's headcanon, but she has a whole feminist sexual slant to things.
It's fantastic.
Which is fine. You can interpret things any way you like, but when you start saying, "Well, this is what the movie's about," you're like, "This movie's about vaginas."
The best thing about it, though, best thing about her videos is that now there's a running joke that The Last Jedi has 5 metaphorical wombs in it. Now we can judge a movie based on how many wombs does it have. I'll give this movie like 5 wombs out of 10.
I don't know if anything, if any like subjective interpretation is going to beat Blackpill's take on Joker. Do you guys know what Blackpill said about Joker?
That was such a hilarious ending. We cracked up.
He basically said that Joker was Jewish propaganda or a Jewish conspiracy to get right wingers to root for a transgender accelerationist Joker.
What?
He's not making that up. That's 100% what he says at the end. That video, it just goes crazy town at the end.
Yeah, we covered it in my fourth podcast, and the funny thing was, I think it was Raimi Fan who he predicted right before he said transgender. He predicted that Blackpill was going to try to say that Joker was transgender or something.
How?
And then like literally 5 seconds after he predicted that, it happens and we lost our minds. And then that was before that was before he even then brought up the whole fact that Todd Phillips is apparently a Jew.
Oh dear. Oh, we just got a super chat.
Man.
Thank you, Jaegerbomb. Thank you for ripping this video a new one. I consider TLJ worse than ROS. Got tricked into watching TLJ. How do you get tricked into watching TLJ? Okay. Where we had warning to say 9 to 9. 9 to 9. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Ruin Johnson isn't getting another Star Wars film. Well, thank you for that clever little sentence structure, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, this is again, as other people have said, the same old arguments, just in a cleaner, a well-edited format. He's more articulate than a lot of the other people out there, so we'll give him credit where it's due. But it's a slog.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we have to stop every couple of seconds and then go on a tirade about how wrong this is.
It's just that so many of these arguments are so wrong and also not really original. It's just
they all make the same exact arguments. These are the same arguments we've heard time and time again that this guy is making, except it's done in a better format.
They're truly acting like NPCs.
I just lost our spot. I'm an idiot.
Oh shit! We were at 9:12.
No,
we were above that. Hang on a second.
We were maybe
we were on 12:08.
Okay.
12:08. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was.
Oh yeah, he goes into this stupid.
The graph is hilarious, and I love how he.
Oh god.
We'll get there.
Yeah. I was looking at the hour for when I said 9. Apparently, I don't know. I'm a dumbass.
The Jedi recruited a massive number of light users, which allowed a super powerful Sith to pull Anakin to the dark side and destroy them. As the Last Jedi died out, the Force began to flow through Luke, and he pulled Anakin back to the light, leading to the Sith being destroyed.
Did everyone get that? There was an abundance of light, and therefore Anakin got pulled to the dark.
Like I said, where in that first shot, he only showed Yoda for like Jedi who were pulling. Like, where the hell were all the rest of the Jedi from the prequels? Like, this is why you need to establish what balancing the Force means if you're going to like redefine it as a yin and a yang. It's like, you can't just say things balance if there's darkness and light.
Because in nature, it's already balanced. Everything in nature is balanced, including the Force, because it's part of the universe. So just because there are a bunch of Sith running around who want revenge for whatever the hell Revenge of the Sith was all about, you can't just say, well, that means a lot of dead Jedi. No, it doesn't. We don't know what that means. We don't know what a prophecy, which is interpretive, is supposed to mean. And George Lucas never answers that. So.
Or not. I'm leaving Palpatine out of this until we know what the fuck is going on. Luke began training a new generation of Jedi, and with Snoke apparently being the only counterbalance, Ben was pulled to the dark side to even things out.
Of course he was. That's exactly how it happened. Thank you.
So what? So apparently, depending on how many Jedi or Sith there are, that will have an effect on how easily one is pulled to either light or dark side.
It sounds like it's one of those stupid Canadian Trudeauisms where it's like we have to get 50% of our cabinet to be male and the other female. It's like, why?
Quota needs to be met.
Yeah, there's a quota that the universe needs for Force users.
This is dumb. I mean, this is that argument. This argument is like, yeah, George Lucas told me that this is true. That if there's like a, essentially it boils down to, if there are 500 Sith users, if the only Jedi remaining is like a 10-year-old who has never held a lightsaber in their lives, then the 10-year-old doesn't have to have any combat training. They said they'll just walk in, kill all 500 until they're balanced again. That's how apparently it works. That's the argument to defend all this nonsense.
Doesn't this kind of imply that free will doesn't really matter in Star Wars, like in terms of, so Vader didn't choose to turn to the light side out of free will. He did it because that was the will of the Force.
Everything is deterministic, exactly.
But you go into this will of the Force thing being absolute, the story loses a lot of meaning.
Yeah, like, okay, so character development doesn't actually matter. It's just a matter of how many Sith or Jedi there are. This just further ruins Star Wars.
Character development, combat skill, all meaningless because it's all up to the Force. That's basically the arguments we've been getting.
This is bullshit.
Yes, it is.
How on earth did someone make a point this retarded?
These are the things that they're reduced to defend The Last Jedi.
I mean, I think that Smudboy already knows this, but we covered a person that tried debunking Mahler by saying, how do we know that a film is definitively a film? And it's like, this is where people are at now. They're even saying, you can't say that The Last Jedi is objectively a bad film because you can't say that it's objectively a film.
We can't say it is a film.
I don't think I got that far, and I don't think I would keep watching if I heard that. So.
No, it
broke Theo's brain. Like he didn't know how to process. He was like stumbling over his words. Like, what did he say? He's like, what?
I've played the Windows shutdown sound.
I noticed
that. And because he's denied that people ever say that everything is subjective, and here we have a person literally saying, yeah, you can't prove that a movie is objectively a movie. The Last Jedi does stuff to your brain.
I don't think it does. I think the people who are affiliated with that mentality, that it's a good movie, they look for excuses or reasoning to them of why, and they come up with this really bizarre rationale that most people who are average would go, wait a second, did you just say this thing is not a thing? Or this is really about the number of metaphorical wombs that represent the feminist, what was it, the feminist journey? What the hell was that shit?
No, the feminine hero's journey. The heroine's journey.
The heroine's journey
is what it was. Yeah, the heroine's journey.
Yeah, which we thought was a joke because it was the obvious word to heroin meaning.
Well, it's like I said, there is absolutely a political motivation behind defending this movie. It validates their leftist crazy views, and so no matter what, they're going to try to defend it, and they will. There are no depths that they are not willing to sink to.
Not only that, when I was with my 5-hour discussion with Jack Saint, he would talk about how there's a correlation between the actual political slant that certain people will have, not only in media, but in their majors, in university, the books they read, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but I don't really care where you come from. I want to know your reasoning for believing in X or Y, not that you're friends with Bob, who's a socialist, or I'm friends with Jeff, who's not. It's just like, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, I'm sure there's a correlation for many things in life, but I don't care. I want to talk about what the actual issues are and why we believe certain things and what the evidence is, not that I get along with all my anarcho-social friends over here in this part of the university. It doesn't mean anything.
By the way, if you haven't looked into the heroine's journey, it's really interesting because it basically proves all the right wingers right that women are not happy in the workforce because the hero's journey,
want to become men essentially.
Yeah, the heroine's journey starts off with the woman rejecting femininity, embracing masculinity, and then they achieve all their whatever they wanted to do, like become a CEO or whatever. And then the next step after that is they inevitably become unhappy. They become unhappy because it's called the illusory reward or something like that. The illusory boon of success. And then it's illusory because they gain their success, but they become unhappy because of all the stuff they've done, like rejecting femininity and all of that stuff. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You mean all the right-wingers are right when they say that women are not happy in the workforce? That's essentially what the heroine's journey says, that will never be happen.
So
you
you
enter
have to
your
go,
woman
yeah,
into the
so
workforce?
in the hero's journey, you go back to normalcy, like after you've gone through the threshold. In this case, the threshold is masculinity, and then you go back to being a woman. And
Yeah,
now
because you're unhappy.
Now
You
you're
become
happy.
depressed.
It's such a strange thing for why someone would write that. It's like they completely misinterpreted Joseph Campbell and said, you know what? If this person had a vagina and they did exactly the same things, why would they end up this way? Well, they wouldn't, because they're women, and women would think this way. It's like, so you're just imposing what a woman would do, but if they had feminine traits. It's like, okay, why? Like, what's the point? If all you're going to come back to is becoming a woman again, as if there was this journey of self-discovery, which you would do in any journey, but because you're a woman, you have to establish sexuality. It's like, okay, great, and that gave Wit and Folly all the reason to see, oh God, uteruses and vaginas,
It's wombs everywhere.
wombs in the Last Jedi. You're like, okay, yeah, the entrance to the sacred Jedi texts is very orifice-like. So is
And Raylo, really heavy on the Raylo.
So is what was the fight scene? That was the sexiest part.
Yeah, it was probably the sexiest because all of her arguments it was all supported by symbolism, and then she started throwing symbolism all over that throne room scene, or in this case, a throne womb scene, and it was just all kinds of random symbolism, like all kinds of random symbols, like this means sex, and this means passion, and this means like, okay, even if these were all symbols that were in the scene, why would they all be there? Like someone just got a handful of different symbols, threw them at the scene, and that's what you went with. There's no connecting elements or anything. Just here's some bunch of symbols. There you go.
I highly doubt that any of that symbolism was intended by the
Ryan Johnson, you mean?
making it. It's like they just wanted to make a cool looking fight scene.
Yeah, this was this point to try to make a cool looking fight scene. Yeah.
And like the thing is that, like, I mean, I'm a pretty left leaning guy. I don't know if I would agree with you guys on much when it comes to politics, but at the very least, it's like I can tell that it's like, look, this is just a shitty movie. This is not the hill to die on. I am not going to sink with this ship.
This picture I've been looking at has been gyrating in my head. I'm just like, I gotta get Kit plays. I don't want to see this ridiculous scale thing with graphics.
It looks like Snoke's got this like receding hairline.
The Jedi, which led to Luke abandoning the Force, leaving no active Jedi on the light side.
Oh, that's why Luke abandoned the Force, because of this graph.
There's no autonomy anymore.
Create when he knew that a new like light side user would just create. He's like, oh, it's okay. The Force will balance itself. I'll just take a break from the Force.
It's all deterministic.
Look at the graph this year, guys. Okay, so 5 are you gonna die, and yeah, okay, that's all of us. We're dead. Game over.
You have no choice in the matter. If the Force says so, then that's what's going to happen.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea of like a.
It's like great. Ugh.
This led to Kylo being pulled back to the light.
I feel it again. The pull to the light.
His resistance to this led to the light finding an outlet through Rey.
I warned my young apprentice that as he grew stronger, his equal in the light would rise.
That constant back and forth has defined Kylo Ren's character.
No. All Snoke said was that there's going to be someone to oppose you on the light side. That doesn't mean there's some weird, crazy slingshot effect that because you've been evil all this time, you're now going to meet some person who's really, really good, and she's going to be a god, and she's going to stop you because
you have Akira level skills in the Force.
Because Mary Sue is amazing, and you're not a Mary Sue, Kylo, so too bad. It's like, what? Because Snoke is so awesome? What?
Very powerful, Kylo Ren, but you know Mary Sue.
What Rey is you know those like the stock strong female character that's like part of an ensemble cast, but she's like usually kind of like a minor character, right? Well, Rey is that character, but made into a protagonist that gets a lot more screen time and does a lot more shit, but they didn't bother to flesh her out any further than those characters tend to be. Like they look at those characters and like, all right, strong female characters, that's what we have to have, right? Let's make a strong female character protagonist, and then they figure, okay, we've got the strong female character archetype, but you know, just because they're being changed into a protagonist this time doesn't mean that we should actually like flesh them out a little bit.
Yep, you're describing a Mary Sue, sir.
Yep.
I'm being torn apart.
He's like a desperate cultist looking for an escape, and Snoke has convinced him that the answer is going fully to the dark side and becoming the next Darth Vader. Kylo does everything Snoke tells him and it doesn't work. He becomes even more conflicted and less powerful.
Bested by a girl who had never held a lightsaber. You failed!
After some reflection, he realizes that he's being used. He has the chance to kill his mother and doesn't take it. When Rey calls him a monster...
Thanks for the non sequitur. What does that have anything to do? You didn't kill his mom. Then this happens. Like, what? What are you talking about?
You're describing the plot and you're ignoring like all the just the all the nonsense that's like going along with this. You're acting like this like makes sense. This is all like something that's like a well fleshed out journey. This is all just like he slingshots back and forth. There's like there was no plan with Kylo. Clearly, they just made him do whatever was interesting. That's why people say he's interesting, but he's not well developed.
He goes from being evil to evil again to good again to evil again.
It should have made Kylo Ren at this point the main character. If he's going to lose to Rey in the very first fight, that's a main character status.
He's the underdog.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know about any of you guys, but I thought after The Force Awakens came out that he was going to have the reverse arc of Darth Vader. I thought that he was going to become more conflicted, like more evil. He was like there was going to be no more light after he killed Han, and then they just abandoned that. They just drop all that, and it's like he's still conflicted in The Last Jedi. I'm like, why did they do that?
Yeah, if they made him like if they did like both a redemption arc for him and then a fall to the dead arc for Rey at the same time, that could have been new for Star Wars to do, but they didn't do it.
It would have been nice. I always love redemption arcs, but the way that it was set up, it was just so empty and meaningless and nihilistic. Like Kylo's like, oh, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Wow, where'd you learn that? I guess from what? From Luke over there in the corner, sulking away. There's nothing better to do with his time. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, that's the message of the movie. Bye. Bye. Like that's the movie. You get nothing out of it, or rather, you're told there's nothing to get out of it. So it's almost a waste of time. Aside from telling people, hey, do you want to not commit suicide? Well, there's existentialism and then there's nihilism. We're sort of in between those two right now. We're not sure where, but that's what you're going to get out of Kylo Ren. He's kind of meh and wants to kill himself. And then you have Luke, who just wants to kill himself, but doesn't actually do it for whatever reason.
Interesting character, not very effective antagonist.
There's so much dialogue in this story. I'm like, why is she having feelings for this guy?
They see it's like incredible dialogue, the back and forth of them. It's so nuanced. It's like it's not. It's really simplistic. It doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like they're being developed. They're just like shouting at each other. It's like angry texting essentially. It's like what?
I remember when I first saw this movie, I'm like, I feel like we just skipped about 30 minutes worth of development between these two when they start like trying to hold each other's hands and shit through the Force.
Yeah.
I rewatched the movie recently. It's like it comes out of nowhere. It's just all of a sudden
she felt
crying.
She went to the dark side or wherever she touched the mirror. She never felt so alone because she still doesn't know where she's from. And so she wants someone to touch her to feel that she's alive. And it happens to be Kylo via Force Skype. And you're like, you hate this guy. You really you want to kill this guy. Why are you stretching your hand out to him? Everything about him you hate. Why would you do that? because you're alone. I'm so alone. I wish the person I hate the most, who I want to kill, would be nice to me. It's like, why? Why did this happen? Kylo's like, duh, what's going on? Yeah, we're talking again. Cool. Like that's his whole attitude throughout the entire thing. He's like, oh, this is happening. Okay, shirt's off. This is cool. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's his whole attitude. I guess I'll touch her now. Oh, here comes Luke. And of course, the connection between this, which is being observed, I imagine, by Snoke. Snoke doesn't care, even though the whole point of connecting the two was to get to Luke. And he just sort of casually tells her when he eventually meets her, without actually now going to Luke. Like, why does he care about the Resistance at that point? Why does the story keep going in that direction? We don't know. But, yeah, something about Luke? Yeah, okay. We'll get there eventually, I guess. It's a very strangely plotted story that you don't understand the motivations of the characters. They switch on a dime. Everyone is inconsistent. It's just this bizarre mess. But yeah, really, really great visuals and John Williams. So
Agrees.
Yes, I am.
He needs to free himself from Snoke in order for his character to move forward, and he needs Rey's help to do it.
Because every time you get two Sith together, the apprentice is always trying to recruit another apprentice to join with him to kill the master.
A lot of people interpreted this as a subversion of their expectations, which has become a meme now. But if you're paying attention to the character, it's not a subversion. This should be the expectation. He's not turning good. He's doing exactly what his character needs to, and he's offering Rey the chance to come along just...
What does his character need to do, exactly?
I have no idea.
That was his plan. They don't make that clear. He's like, I want you to join me. Like we can rule together, make a new order. Like, how would they rule? They don't explain any of that.
Like rule the First Order and then take over. Is that? I think it's the only thing that can actually happen.
Suppose.
Didn't they just
really
destroy
strange.
the Republic? Is there anything left to rule? Like, what's... I don't... Like, they didn't give us an understanding of the political landscape of what's going on. Like, they blew up some planets in the last movie. Was that the whole Republic? Was that part of the Republic? Was like, what was the scope of that damage? Because clearly, the Republic doesn't give a crap. And the First Order's been doing whatever they want. They seem to be in control, so... What's the big like what's his goal here? What does he want to do? Conquer the galaxy? Isn't he already winning? Is that going to just blow up planets again? Is he just going to conquer them now? Like I want to know what's at stake here. And they're not giving me anything aside from a really weak republic and a resistance, which are like what, 30 people?
That's what it looks like.
What do you need her help for? What are you trying to, like, I don't get it. Do you like her? Are you attracted to her? Maybe. I don't get it. I don't know.
as Vader did to Luke. And fans also hated this because they didn't get their fucking Wikipedia page filled out.
It's
You
not
can't
true.
kill him yet.
I need him!
The film is already overlong and packed with plot. How would this have helped?
You can't kill him yet because he's the established main villain that you yourselves established. He's the head guy. You don't kill off the head guy in the second episode. He's supposed to be the main fight. It's like you messed up the rivalry between Rey and Kylo Ren. He's useless as a rival. Unless he's the main character, which he isn't.
And let's remember, he is way stronger than Rey. Like, bizarrely stronger. And as soon as he meets her, he has to die. For whatever reason. I don't know if that's a plot reason, or a dramatic reason, or Johnson just wanted to surprise us again. Like a gotcha moment. It's like, oh! He's not important. He's gone. And then we have a fight scene, which is pointless. Because the fight scene is like, why are these guys fighting you? Or Rey? What's the point? The Emperor's dead. Okay, who's in charge? The guy standing there. Oh, we got to kill him. What happens if the Red Guard killed them both? What would happen? Hux would walk in and say, what the hell happened here? Oh, they killed the Emperor. All right, I guess I'm in charge. Okay. No, they'd kill Hux.
Kill everybody? Like they're like we need to kill. Like they're like, oh, we won. Kill more people.
What else? What else do they have to do? There's no reason for them to kill Kylo, so why would they just stop there? They'd keep going. There's no logic behind it.
Unfortunately, I have to go. Unfortunately, I can't stay long. But thanks for having me.
Probably cut it off here, right?
Yeah, we can cut it off here. Yeah, it's kind of late. Okay, guys, we're going to plan it out for part 2. Thanks for hanging on, everyone. That's been a while. But
got to take note of this timestamp 1414.
1414, not hard to remember. Okay.
Star Wars 1414.
Yeah, thanks guys for jumping in. Evan for popping in at the last second there. We appreciate it.
Yeah, for having me on.
And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Smudboy, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd be happy to join in for part 2 and any future streams you'd like to have me be a part of.
Okay, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for joining us.
Talk later.